Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today. As you know, 2018 is very special for Leeds. It's been 40 years since we officially registered as a charity, which makes us the oldest thalassemia patient society in the world. It is my honour as treasurer of the society in this special year to welcome you all, and I hope you enjoy today. First of all, I have a few housekeeping notes. Can you please switch off mobile phones and put them silent? Just to highlight the toilets, the fire escapes. The toilets are just in the back. We have the fire escapes in the left and one at the back. I'd like to thank the doctors Christine Wright and Madraza for giving up their time, the speakers. Also the patients speaking, Noreen Khan, Nabil Javid, Munira Khoza, and Mohammed Bas Punjabi. I mention actually to all those who helped us by putting up posters and circulating information on social media. Can everyone please fill out the evaluation forms that are in your packs? When we were planning this conference last year, we took into consideration feedback compiled from previous events and our patient surveys. One thing that people objected to was having to travel, which is why we planned two separate events this year. The 10th of March, which was in London for the south, and today in Leeds for the north of the Midlands. We hope this will be more convenient for everybody. Our feedback also suggested that what people enjoyed most about the conferences was not listening to complicated medical information, but rather the personal experience of other like patients, thalassemia patients and parents. Nowadays, any medical information can be found online, but there is no substitute for the personal contact and meeting people in the same situation as you in the same room. Another issue which came up frequently was just listening all day was boring, especially for young people. So this time we decided to turn things around completely and hand over most of the planning and organisation of the conference to our young volunteers, led by my friend, Rowan Maharaj. Rowan and the team have come up with a programme which I think is very well balanced. There is medical information about the latest developments and treatments, also keeping well and living long. As somebody who has thalassemia myself, that is the bottom line really. I want to be around and feeling fit for many years to come. First, for most of the programme today, however, it's over to you, our thalassemia community. We have some people who have agreed to speak about their personal experiences. If anyone in the room has something they want to say, please come up and tell us. Don't be shy. We are all among friends here, and there's no need for formality. We want everyone to join in the discussions, and everybody's opinion counts. I'm really looking forward to some lively exchanges. It must be noted that in response in London was excellent. Sorry. It must be noted that the response in London was excellent. And looking this morning, we are contacted by several international patients joining via online social media. So without further ado, I'll hand over to our chair for the day, Rowan. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? No? Adam, you're the guy. Is it better now? No. Letting you down, Adam. Try to go closer? That's should you. All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. we've done a lot of planning in this, and I hope that everybody, I hope that you learn a lot. Doctors have amazing presentations. Meet new people, because I think that is the best. And of course, enjoy the day. Now, before I outline the program, I'm going to introduce you to our amazing doctors here who gave their time up today. The first up is Dr. Emma Dasher. She's consultant hematologist at the Red Cell Unit, which forms part of UCLH, University College Hospital in London, and Whittington Hospital. Emma has a lot of experience. She worked at sickle cell. She is a clinical lecturer at King's, UCL, and the British Society for Hematology. Get that right? Emma's also worked in transplant units and at King's Hospital, so we got a lot going on here. Next up is Dr. Christine Wright, who is consultant hematologist and lead clinician for hematology at City Hospital in Birmingham, which has the highest population of adult thalassaemic patients outside London. Christine is a long-time collaborator and consultant to the UKTS, and she's also part of the team who wrote the very first clinical standards back in 2005. And also, she worked with the last publication we had in 2016. Christine also took part in peer reviews all over the country, so making sure that thalassemia services were excellent. So yeah, I think we have a really great panel today. It's women power, taking on the world. Next, the red folders that everybody has a few things that we need from you. There are name tags posted publicly, because I don't think you want me to make names up for you. I'm really good at it, but you're not going to like it. There is a copy of the program, which I will try to keep to as best as I can. There's also an evaluation sheet, because as Raj said, in order to better these events, we need to hear feedback from you. So this is where you get to judge us. Also, I kind of like to hear nice things too, so please try. And there's some paper, because you're going to learn a lot from these doctors today. Now, I promise I'll stop talking very soon. We have an amazing thing that we started with these events, and we have a social media desk, which is going to be very active, and everybody has to get involved. The social media desk is so everybody turn around, it's on the side, my directions are home. So I'm going to hand you over to Anand. For the last conference, just a little bit of info. The conference was streamed all over the world. We had over 1,100 views. People are able to ask questions and whatever. I'm very bad at social media, so I'm going to hand you over to Anand, and he's going to explain to you how today's going to work. So Anand?
Thanks, Ro. Thank you very much. Hi guys, as Roanna said, basically last time at the London conference, it was a really good receptive response in terms of Facebook. It was a bit of a trial for us in terms of actually going live and streaming on Facebook Live. For all those guys that are on social media and if they were actually using Facebook, it's a great way for everyone across the globe to interact with us here today, especially the guys across the UK who couldn't make it with us as well. We've had lots of interest from lots of people across the world, and we've had people coming from likes of India and the US and parts of Europe as well, who have actually asked us to tune into today's conference. It's great. I'm just going to ask Adam if you could quickly switch to my laptop here, because I'm going to ask everyone in the audience right just to wave to everyone that's there. So unfortunately you can't see it on the main screen, but if you look on your side screens there, those guys at the front, you're actually live right now, right this second, to everyone. So if you just give them a quick wave to the cameras just right to say hello to everyone. We're giving everyone a wave, so that's great. Thank you very much. So that's a big hello to everyone across the globe from us here in Leeds today. Not just that, we're actually going live with interactive questions as well. So everyone in the audience right here, right now, you can actually ask questions through your mobile phones. If you go onto slido.com and you add in the event code 7123, you can actually ask questions live. They'll come to us here at the social media desk, and we can actually put them across to the panel as well. So that's slido.com, that's the event code 7123. All the guys across the world as well. I know I've just posted that quickly, but you can go on there, ask us the questions, and we'll put that to the panel. So if you don't feel like asking right here, right now, live, you can actually ask that interactive posted on there as well. For all those guys who are on Twitter, please do look at our Twitter page at Team UKTS. We will be tweeting throughout the day as well. So like I said, we're trying to make this interactive as possible. We're going live on all the different platforms that we can, and it would be great to have your audience interaction as well and participation. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you. So everybody got that. You can ask questions on slido.com, and the event code is 7123.
Correct. So 1, 2, 3.
Great. All right. So before I hand you to the doctors, this is how it's going to work today, because we have a slightly later start. The doctors are going to present, and then we're going to have maybe some of the presentations from patients. And the afternoon session is going to be very, very interactive, because everybody has to get involved. And if you don't, I'm going to force you to get involved. So, yeah, how it's going to work, the doctors are going to present, and after each one presents, we'll ask questions. I'm very bossy, as you can tell, so I'm going to stick to timings. If we don't answer all the questions at once, we'll answer them later in the day. Everybody got that? Great. So Emma, over to you, and updating us on new developments and treatments.
Thanks very much, Anna, and thanks to the UKTS for inviting me to speak today. I've been involved in red cell haematology for the last 10 years at least, and I have to say the last 2 years from a scientific and research point of view have been, things are really starting to get interesting. And we'll go over some of the new developments that are in the pipeline today. So we're going to have a little look back at the past, what's gone before, present, what's happening now, and also the potential for what could happen in the future as well, and how you guys can get involved and try and shape the change that is to come. So a bit of a history lesson. We know that among our older patients that survival has improved year on year on year, and we're sort of a bit going into the unknown from a treatment point of view, because what I'd hope is that my patients with thalassemia who are born today have the potential, with good transfusion, good collation, to lead long and healthy lives. However, what does the future hold? We don't know. This is a picture of myself and my younger brother. Who knew then that I'd be, a consultant hematologist talking to all you guys today? So these are an example of some of the trials that have been involved and some of the developments that have happened in thalassemia over the years, from the start with transfusion therapy in the mid to late 60s, then IM, Desferal, going to subcut Desferal, the first bone marrow transplant in the 80s, and then the more recent other chelator trials with L1, the development of the lighter infuser pumps, and more recently XJade, and also the imaging, which has made a massive difference to people not having to have those regular liver biopsies that used to be the standard of care. So previous trials have really focused on complications, from transfusion, chelating agents, imaging modalities. But in the current era, what the focus is on the new developments is treating the underlying issues with thalassemia. So we'll just go over a little bit of the science behind thalassemia, and then we'll go on to two of the main treatments modalities that are coming through at the moment. So we're trying to now have a bit more responsive medical attitude. And I know a lot of you would have been asked to be registered on the UK Hemoglobinopathy Registry, and part of that is so that we can try and be ahead of the curve, not sort of reactive, try and be more responsive. And we also need to think about what matters to you guys. So what are the advantages of clinical trials? You make a contribution to developing future treatments and potentially a cure for thalassemia. Unfortunately, in the days of where we used to, we thought something might work, we give it a bash. Those days are gone. It's many forms, much ethics as appropriate, and people will only be licensed and funded by the NHS if things are properly evaluated in the trial setting. If the trial's successful, then you usually have the opportunity to access the treatment prior to it becoming routinely available. And joy of joys, you'll see a lot more of your healthcare providers, your medical team, which can have benefits for your health. The disadvantage of taking part in trials, it is a significant commitment of time and effort on your part. If you get the new drug, it's a new drug. There may be adverse events. And if you don't get the new drug, do you feel then it's a waste of time? You're not getting a personal benefit. But I have to say, usually patients who are in a blinded study, so a study where you don't know if you're getting the active drug or a placebo, so a sort of a blank drug, usually you do end up getting the drug eventually. And that should all be explained to you by your consultants at the time if you are interested in any studies. So when I started at medical school, it was all about curing. That's it. As a doctor, you think, you're going to save lives, save the world. But actually, as a doctor, you realise that most of the time you can't cure people. It's about treating people and giving them good quality of life. Now, thalassemia exists because there's a change in the gene, in what we call the beta globin gene, that means that people don't produce enough beta globin chains. So if you look here, this is a diagram of hemoglobin, and you can see there's the 2 beta chains, and then there's the 4 alpha chains. Now, if you don't have enough beta chains, then you end up with too many alpha chains, wandering around looking for dates, okay, causing damage and destruction to your tissues. Now, some changes in the gene mean that you produce a few of the beta chains, and perhaps if you're in that situation, you might not need such regular transfusions as some of your friends. You might only need sometimes in the jaw as well. Quite a few people have reported that sort of pain. Feeling headache, some people have felt sort of fatigued, basically. Some sort of muscle cramps, arthralgia, and some people, unsurprisingly, get some pain around where they had their injection sites. But all in all, it was pretty well tolerated. So there's now phase 3, so that's the next stage of trial, where people are it's basically what we call a double-blind trial. So people are either getting the drug or they're getting the placebo, we don't know, and one of the consultants involved in the trial don't know either. That's used in beta 0, so people who don't produce that many beta globin chains, but aren't that heavily transfused, sort of only really a couple of units every 3 weeks. And there's also going to be a new trial opening up soon beyond, which is going to be in the non-transfusion dependent patients, looking to see if the results are repeatable. So that's the trying to make the ineffective erythropoiesis in thalassemia effective to try and reduce people's transfusion frequency or to improve their hemoglobin so they feel better. The other big change, another big development, is gene therapy or gene manipulation. So I'm going to focus more on gene therapy. I think there's been quite a lot which is where we take a patient's own stem cells, because obviously transplant's been around for a long time. Think back to my first slide, transplantation's been around since the 80s. But that relies really on patients being able to have donors. So you have to have an ideally a sibling donor who will give their bone marrow or their stem cells, which are healthy and producing the normal hemoglobin to replace yours that aren't working. Not everyone has a donor. This is a big problem, and that's significant for a lot of people. There's quite a bit of research into half-match transplants, but also even if you've got a great donor, a 10 out of 10 match, it's still someone else's. It's not just someone else's bone marrow factory, someone else's red blood cell factory that you're putting in. You're also putting in a completely different immune system. and therefore that immune system could theoretically recognise your body as foreign and start attacking you. So this is where gene therapy comes in, because you're your own donor, okay? Keeps your immune system, more or less, the same, but we try and fix the change in the gene that's causing the thalassemia. And there are a couple of ways that can do that. I'll just briefly touch on CRISPR. So CRISPR is basically where we try and replace the gene, or we change one of the genes to compensate for the fact that you're not producing beta globin properly. So when we're in our mother's wombs, all these littlies, okay, when they were inside a few months ago, they were producing something called hemoglobin F, fetal hemoglobin. And they're getting on quite fine with that. And that was the same case for all you guys in the audience who have thalassemia. When you're in the womb, you're producing a different sort of hemoglobin. You're not reliant on beta globin chains, you use gamma globin chains. So they're all quite happy, causing you no problems at all. But the problem is when you're born, something called the hemoglobin switch occurs, and then you start to become reliant on the beta globin chains, which, as we've said, you're not producing enough of. And that's where we run into problems with thalassemia. But if you could reverse that switch, or somehow increase the amount of fetal hemoglobin, then that could, using gene editing, then that could potentially be another way of sorting out thalassemia. That is even further, that's even sort of more in development than the gene therapy that I'm going to tell you about. But I just wanted to mention it because it was in the news recently, and also in the current edition of UKTS newsletter. There's a bit about it in there as well, so have a read. Now, with gene therapy, what we do is we take we harvest the patient's stem cells. Now, we can either do that by taking the bone marrow. Basically, you have an anaesthetic and it gets sucked out with a syringe and then goes off for processing. Or what we're doing in the current trial is we give some injections to push the stem cells into the peripheral blood. And then, I don't know how many of you are in centres with white cell patients or bone marrow transplant centres or patients who have sickle cell disease, but you might see them on the apheresis machines, having their exchange transfusions or having their stem cell harvest. And that's pretty much it. You're on the machine for a few hours. You may need a couple of goes to get enough cells, and then those cells get taken off for processing. Now, what we have to do is try and get the corrected gene into your cells. Sounds very straightforward, it isn't at all, okay? So what you want to do is you just want to make sure it ends up in the right place, because if it ends up in the wrong place, it can cause issues further down the line, like the bone marrow cells getting out of control, and potentially, as what happened in early trials with gene therapy 15, 20 years ago, unfortunately can sometimes result in people developing cancers. So you want enough copies of the corrected gene in the right place. So to get that, you use what we call a lentiviral vector. So the way this type of virus breeds, how it works, is it copies itself into cells. So we take advantage of that, and it's like innate wanting to get into cells, to stick a bit of the corrected gene bit, basically stick that into this virus so that it can do our job for us. So, it's very, very handy. And there's all sorts of other bits attached to the vector that help it do its job. So there's a trial by Bluebird Bio, which was an international multi-centre trial that used this vector in 18 patients. And it was a combination of transfusion-dependent patients, initially that study. So this is what I've just said. So when you've collected your stem cells, they've been manipulated in the lab with this lentiviral vector, and they're now confident that hopefully they've got enough copies of the gene, the corrected gene, in those cells. Then we have to get those cells in. I always use the analogy that it's a bit like gardening, okay? You've got to clear the weeds before the flowers can grow, okay? So to clear the weeds of your existing bone marrow that's not doing its job properly, you have to give chemotherapy, okay? And this regime does use high doses of chemotherapy, a drug called sulfan, and it's what we call a myeloablative conditioning. So that means it does wipe out your immune system to create room for the corrective stem cells. And then they go in, it looks a bit like a bag of sort of yellow fluid, yellow blood, just goes in through the drip and through the wonder of the human body and chemo factors, finds their way to the bone marrow, and they set up camp and start making hopefully making the right sort of hemoglobin. So from a safety perspective, it is a transplant, and so the side effects of the treatment are actually pretty much all related to the transplant chemotherapy. So temperatures, because people are vulnerable to infections, because they've got no immune system. Sore mouth, very common. Hair loss, because chemotherapy attacks the fast dividing cells. So any cell that's fast growing is taken out. It's highly likely with this type of conditioning, this type of chemotherapy, that people do, there is an effect on fertility. How significant that will be, we need to see in the long term. And some people got nosebleeds. The most serious concern was there's a condition called veno-occlusive disease of the liver, where people can get little clots forming in the liver, and that is more common with the sulfan chemotherapy, and it's also more common in people who have underlying issues with the liver. And we all know that viruses, iron can all cause problems with the liver. So that's why they're being very cautious about which patients they select initially for the study, because it can be very serious, and we don't want that to happen to people, because we're trying to cure people. So there are a group of patients, so this is back to what I was saying about the non-beta 0, beta 0 genotypes. So these were all people who were on transfusions, but quite a few of them were either a combination of beta plus, so making some beta globin chains, or hemoglobin E and beta 0. So that's a different condition, similar to thalassemia, but slightly different type of hemoglobin, but can need transfusions. So the median, so there are 10 patients in that group, and after 29 months, some people are a bit longer, some people a bit shorter, people were free, 9 out of 10 patients were transfusion free, okay? So theoretically, these patients are cured of their thalassemia for the time being, which is great news. Unfortunately, there's one patient who's not quite there yet, and they were 19 months out of transfusion when we produced this slide. And if you have a look at the hemoglobins down the side, some people have hemoglobins up to 13.7, 137, as we have to say now, but there's still some people who are transfusion independent but did have slightly lower hemoglobins, 94, 110, that sort of thing. So good results, not perfect, not normal hemoglobins, but better than being transfusion dependent. Now this is the flip side. Only 2 out of the 8 patients who have beta 0, so the most severe form of thalassemia. And in my patient cohort, the wasn't the most common type of thalassemia, were free from chronic blood transfusions, which was great for them, but obviously disappointing for the other 6 patients who had undergone that procedure with no benefit. However, there was some reduction in now of blood that they needed to be transfused. And you can see, so the light blue bar is the pre-treatment amount of blood they were having, and the dark blue bar is the amount of treatment they were having after, the blood transfusion they were having after the treatment. So things had improved, but is that enough on the risk ratio to want to undergo the procedure? However, we don't just, scientists don't sit on our hands, they've got, it's not good enough, never mind. Because obviously these drug companies are throwing money at the situation and they want to be able to sell their products to us. And so then they've changed the vector, which does appear to give better copy numbers. So more of the treated, more of the vector, the treated gene, is getting into the stem cells. And therefore, that should give better results down the line with regard to haemoglobin improvements. And now there's a new trials coming out with, again, in non-beta zero patients and also in the beta zero patients as well. So, and they're sort of coming through at the moment. The problem is that because this is cutting edge stuff, this is, sort of science fiction sort of thing. The initial trials are going to involve very small numbers of people, and they're going to, in a way, they want to choose the people who are the most straightforward to do first, because, God forbid, we do not want to, I do not want to put my patient into a trial that I think has a good chance of causing them harm. When I know that good transfusion and good collation can give people, normal, healthy life. But it's those brave patients who want to, take that step forward and be part of that trial that will hopefully mean that these therapies develop and become available for everyone, or more patients in the future. We need to make sure things are safe. We need to make sure things are safe long term. Participating in trials, and some of my patients here today have been in trials. It does take time, and there are potential risks. But if we don't push, we don't change the situation. And it's only because of the UKTS, patients, interested clinicians like Christine and other consultants pushing, that we've got to the stage where people are getting regular safe transfusions and that new therapies are being developed. It's all part of being in a team. You're part of the team, we're part of the team. It's all about us working together. And ultimately, if these therapies do become licensed, we'll need you guys to push to get them for people, because expensive therapies are not necessarily the right. These therapies might not necessarily be the right option for everyone, for sure, and they do carry risks. But I think for some people they will be a good option, and you want to make sure that for those patients that they are available. So thanks to my team, my patients, all my colleagues, and obviously, of course, the UKTS for inviting me to speak again today.
Does anybody have questions?
If anyone, I'm going to be around all day, so if anyone doesn't get a chance to ask questions, they can come.
Do you have anything on that?
No, it's quite quiet at the moment, so everyone actually needs to get onto Slido for some questions.
Come on, guys. This
Crystal clear.
Well done.
7123, slido.com.
So I have a question. Luspatercept was developed for boys initially.
So yes, this Luspatercept was.
Oh, okay.
They never fiddled with it.
Okay.
They did. Yeah.
So in terms of thalassemia,
does it help both?
yes, will it help?
Yes. So they're looking at that. That's one of the things. So everyone's going through their DEXA scans, having regular DEXA scans as part of the study things. Nothing. The data lookout for the Luspatercept is happening this summer. So pharma companies, big pharma companies, they'll then sit on those results till the American Society of Hematology meeting, which is in December. So hopefully in December, the Christmas edition of or the January edition of the UK Thalassemia Society leaflet, we should have some more information for you.
Okay. Anybody? Yes. So, and how long is the trial?
How long is the trial for? So the follow-up will be years for these patients. The initial trial is until it recruits. So So it will be, I think it will recruit quite quickly. So it will, for the gene therapy, it will be only open for 6 months before it's full, and then for the SPACEP's already closed this round, so I believe it's already finished recruiting. Because the problem is these trials will always recruit internationally as well. So when I opened Believe at the Whittington, it was because they were recruiting abroad in Thailand, particularly. They were just loads of hemoglobin, even thalassemia patients were being recruited like mad over there. And so we were having to try literally sort of, get everything through sort of double proton. Did you open? It was 20, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. So it's trying to set up a trial to create this enormous amount of work, involves vast amounts of forms and having to deal with management. So I think it's I think it's really good to try and if you guys keep on pushing us to keep these trials opening.
Okay, we have 3 questions on the Slido, and Anne, do you want to?
Yep, we can put a couple of questions that have just come in. The first one is, would children that have thalassemia be considered for the gene therapy trial?
Yeah, so let me go back to it. I don't know. So the new trial, the North Star 2, there will be a paediatric arm, not for very small children, but for children, I think it's over the age of 12.
Fantastic. And there's just one more. Is there an age restriction?
Yeah, so upper limits, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I've always been a great believer in biological age, not chronological age. I mean, I was the transplant coordinator at King's. We did stem cell transplants on patients with leukemia who were in their 70s because they were fit. But I've had patients who were in their 40s who weren't fit for transplants because of their comorbidities. I think the cut-off's going to be, it will probably be in the 50s. I think that's where they're drawing the line at the moment. George?
When you presented from beta 0 to 0, when you were presenting beta 0, you indicated that only 2 out of the 8 succeeded. Can you tell us what happened to the other 6?
I think they where is that? So this is the data. These are, oh gosh, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's strong. So this is the patients who didn't become transfusion independent. Now, and this is the thing. What is transfusion independence? Is it normalisation of hemoglobin, or is it making people into intermediates? That's because we know that. I know that my patients who have thalassemia intermediate or older, they're not having a free lunch either. There are complications associated with that too. So I think that's an important thing to emphasise. So as you can see from these results, some people did have a decent reduction in their number of transfusions. This first lady here, the 36-year-old lady, has had a significant reduction in her transfusions. However, the chap on the end, Mr. 28-year-old male, it's basically done nothing for him. So that's the sort of the risk.
Okay, so shall we move on?
Sorry, just so the real question really is, was it worth it? And the consequences?
Yeah, so it was worth it. This is the thing, it was definitely worth it, probably. You'd have to ask the patient themselves. This is the thing. Because when you design a trial, you set specific parameters that are absolute. But I can't say, I don't know what it's like to be someone with thalassemia. I can't, that choice as to whether having that reduction, stretching out your transfusions from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, is that, to you as a person, is that benefit worth it for the risk? The problem is not necessarily what my thought is, it's from a funding body point of view, from a government point of view, is that cost saving worth it for the cost of the transplant? And that, I think, is what is going to be where the debate is really going to be happening.
Okay, last question, Jack.
I'm just going to say, it looks like the females had a better response.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that is. Looking at this, you're like, where are these men that they're why so the thing was, looks like the ladies are doing better than the chaps on this side. But there's only one man. Well, I don't know if that's a comment on male recruitment into trials or what I'd say. I've got I believe I've got more men actually than women in the study. But yes, it does look like that. They haven't noticed a difference from a gender perspective as far as the gene therapy. Yeah, but again, we're talking small numbers, really small numbers here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Emma.
No worries.
So Christine's presentation is titled Living Long and Looking Good. Yeah, so
Thank you, and thanks to you, KKS, for inviting me to join you. It's really brilliant to see so many faces here, and I'm really, really grateful for everybody who's come. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from the other side of the pay lines, the right side, so I have a special passport to come to Yorkshire today. We're going to think about not just blood, because thalassemia isn't just about having blood, it's about so many different other things. And we're going to think about some of the important complications and things to do to. And I'm really going to push it back to you guys and think about what can you do. Remember that everybody in this room has the same aim. We all want to be healthy. We all want to have healthy families. We all want to choose what we do. And I don't think there's anybody who probably sort of take me up on that. I've seen a couple of people in the room who should know where these places are. Where are they? Anybody? Go on then. Is that my son? It is. Okay. So on the right is Blackburn Rovers. It's Ewood Park. So I'm from Accrington originally, but I'm afraid I've lived in Blackburn for most of my life. Been Birmingham most of my life, but this is home. Any child who is born, their families want them to be able to do normal things. The picture on the left is Whitty Park. You might have been there for various different things. And the picture on the right is something that I like to do. We've all got different things that we want to do, but we want to choose them and we want to do them on our terms. When our children are born, we want them to be able to do these things. And we don't want them to be in a crowd where actually things are difficult for them. We want them to be able to just get on and do everything that they want to do. So again, going back again to some of these things that help us to take forward into the future. To go into the future, we've got to be well. To go into the future and have the options of having transplants or gene therapy, then you have to be really, really well, because that gives you the better chance of getting through all of this. When you start on the journey, then it depends where you start from. And I know that there's going to be some debate about sort of the older patients versus the younger people who are living with thalassemia, but actually we're all in it together. For the younger ones, we've got the parents and the families and the patients who've had thalassemia over the years to thank for where we are now. And if you look at the coloured lines, then if you're born in ancient times like me, then I'm afraid you're on the orange line. And that means that you're much less likely to be alive and well right now. But if you look at the top, if you look at the purple line, the green line, and the blue line at the top, those are some of our younger people. And in the room, I'm sure we've got younger ones still, okay? And so the chances of being alive and keeping going are related to your age, okay? But things are changing. There are lots and lots of complications of thalassemia, and whether you've got transfusions all the time, or whether you are not having transfusions all the time, then there are still problems with it, okay? And you probably know people or read things about it that tell you that these things can happen. Unfortunately, over the time we've lost people, and we have had patients who have passed and patients who aren't with us anymore. And actually, that's horrible for their families, but for also the others who are left around. But we must learn from these things so that it doesn't then affect you guys, okay? So the sorts of things that people have died from have changed over the years, but dying is dying, and so we've got to sort of change that so that that's not where you're going. Okay, so unfortunately, every time you have a bag of blood, you get a lot of iron going into your body, and every time you have a transfusion, then unfortunately it stays there. It is hard having transfusions, and it's hard taking tablets. It's hard taking any medical treatments. But there are times in our lives when we've got to do stuff that we don't want to do. And it's really, really important that we get this right. And something that sounds simple, we've got to get our heads around and we've got to do it. What you don't want to be doing is going forward in life and thinking, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. It's so important that you work and you try to work with your families, your friends, your peers, and your nurses and doctors to be able to try to do these things. You may have seen some of your friends, some of your peers who've had simple falls and they've broken bones. Now, if you're in your 70s or 80s and you fall over and break a bone, that's not so uncommon. But if you're in your 20s or 30s, then that shouldn't really be happening. So you'll hear us talk to you, nag you about doing things, whether it is taking your vitamin D, having you once weekly, alendronic acid, whether it is about have you been doing some walking, have you been taking some exercise. All of these things are long-term stuff that matters. You know very well that if you talk to some of your non-specialist doctors, that they won't always understand with thalassemia, because sometimes, unfortunately, people don't have the understanding that you need when you're poorly. And I'm sure there's people in the room who've been affected by things like kidney stones. I know that there'll be plenty of you in the room who've got diabetes, and plenty of you who actually have to think about stuff like blood pressure and things like that. So it isn't just about the blood transfusion itself. You all, unfortunately, will have read or heard or seen people who've had heart problems. And these are some of the worst things. These are some of the things that are really, really scary. People can go into heart failure, people's heart can start beating very fast and very differently. And it's really important that actually, if you get any signs of breathing problems or heart palpitations, that those are things that you recognise and do something about. But most importantly, preventing it. Because actually, it's much better to be in a situation where you're not going to recover from these things, but you're not going to get them in the first place. And remember, your general health matters as well, okay? So, give up the ciggies, they're not really that cool. It's worth just sort of trying to eat well, it's worth trying to take exercise. All of those things are really, really good. There's stuff that you can see on the outside. So if you have somebody who's got tons and tons of iron on board, then sometimes you might see that their skin's getting darker over the years. Okay? But there's also stuff that you can't see, stuff on the inside. And it's a bit like a geyser waiting to erupt. And your liver's one of the most important parts of your body. And when you have all the transfusions and have all the iron going in, then unfortunately your liver really struggles. If you're then one of the unfortunate people that get something like hepatitis, then again it can cause problems. So go and have the tests done, have the checks done, take the sort of top tips that are offered, and try to sort of see it as a long term. Because even though you can't see it, you've only got one liver and you want to hang on to it. As our children grow older, we see them going through sort of nursery school, primary school, and into secondary school. We want them to be able to develop normally. We want them to be able to grow up and to have families. And so it matters if our daughters start their periods or not. It matters if our sons go through normal puberty or not. Not just for the obvious things, but also for the other things inside, such as your bones. If you have too much iron and you don't get rid of it, then unfortunately that can be a real threat. And so that isn't something that we always think about. Certainly when I started off as a doctor, I was never going to have kids. Okay, I changed my mind. They're the best thing I've ever done. But actually, give yourselves the possibility. Okay? Now, if you are thinking of getting married, thinking of starting a family, then unfortunately there can be times when you actually need to mention it, because there's some really important things that you want to do in advance to be able to give yourself the best chance. Okay? It starts with the most difficult thing, which is talking about it with a partner. It starts with that most difficult thing of saying, will you have a blood test? And that's hard, but sometimes we've been through it before with other people, and so we might have some suggestions of things that you can do. You're then going to work on getting your iron as low as it can be. You're going to work on getting your diabetes under control and getting your everything as fabulous as possible. In some situations, we didn't always have the right access to things when some of you were younger. And so there may be some of you who are actually preparing for this with less iron, with less good habits. Sorry? So if you can try to, so for some of these older guys or older women, then you may need to try to have some extra treatment to get pregnant. You may need to have some extra treatment that will help you sustain pregnancy. And that's hard. IVF is stressful, IVF is difficult, but it can be very, very successful for people, but it can also take a lot of time. There's some of the usual stuff that everybody has to do. So everybody who wants to be pregnant has to have folic acid. And then there's some of the thalassemia stuff that you've got to do. Okay? There may be some of the tablets that we give you day to day that actually you must take. But at the point that you want to start to plan pregnancy, you may need to stop them. So we are nosy. We do like to know a lot of what's going on. But actually we are there also to help to give you the best chance of things being successful. Okay? So you might need to have some changeover of your treatment. It's possible that having had just the tablets, you might need to try Destro for a bit. It's possible also that you might need to see fertility treatment specialists and have some different injections and stuff that will help your body to start producing the usual things like sperm and eggs. It takes time. It takes an awful lot of time, so don't wait until you're getting a lot older. Try to start early. Now, for many of you in the room, you know what it means when you say that you feel tired. And you know very well that there's days of the month where you really can't function. But sometimes there's days of the month that you can't function for different reasons. And one of the things that's really, I urge you to do is to keep going and having the regular bloods done. I know that lots of you want to avoid clinics, looking at nobody in particular, but actually sometimes clinics are a way of making sure you get all those blood tests done, making sure that you've had stuff like your thyroid check. Okay? Sometimes some of these things will creep up on you, and before you know it, you don't feel quite so good. But remember though, that this is a nudge to everybody in the room who's actually trying to get one over their mum or dad. I have certainly have tried to do that in the past, and I was very, very good at doing it. And I suspect that everybody else in the room has tried it as well. And for some of the people who are living with thalassemia, this is a reminder to you that actually your mum and dad have sorted out loads for you, but now it's time for you to be starting to take it on, okay? Don't just let them do everything. Please, 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 to parents, start letting your child take control of their planning. Let them take control of their tablets and give them backup. Don't carry them around like a little prince or a little princess, because actually you're not doing them any favours. There are days of the week that I accept that they can't do stuff, but that is not 7 days a week. Okay? So if that sounds hard, I'm sorry, but remember, we all have good times and bad times. We've talked about reactive, we've talked about responsive. Part about thalassemia, the good stuff, and about being involved in things like the learning, the new developments, is actually getting into all of the planning, getting into the planning for the future, so that you can think about stuff when you're 18 that's going to be relevant when you're 28. Okay? Unless we can actually learn from some of those brilliant trials that are going on, unless we can learn from the people who've been through things like gene therapy, then we won't be able to change it for the better in the future. And so we need your input to influence what's happening. We need you to be sort of asking questions of people, whether it is your doctors, or whether it is your MPs, or whether it's anybody who's got influence. We need you to tell us what matters to you as well. If you take control, then so many of these complications don't need to happen. So many of these things can be completely prevented. Okay? Now, none of us are perfect, and everybody has a bad day. And so it's possible that when you've got a run of a bad day, a run of bad weeks, or even bad months or bad years, that you can still turn things around. You can still make a difference, and you can still start to get back under control and prevent things. Part of that is having the information to do it with. So if you know what your blood results show, if you know what your MRIs show, if you know, have you had your hormone checks, your hepatitis checks, all of those things, then that allows you to be sort of saying, hang on a minute, that's not quite right, what are we going to do about it? That's what I want, because that allows you to be sort of influence the direction of flow. It's your bodies, and it's going to be you that's going forward this in the long term. The UKTS has done some brilliant work over the years, and one of the things that you'll hear us harp on about is the standards. And for all of the younger people, it's on a thing that you can put on your phone. So if ever you're poorly, if you go to the emergency department and you don't see a doctor that you know, you can actually sort of say, hang on a minute, these are the questions that you need to ask me. You don't need to know all the answers, but if you've got the information on your phone, or you know how to access it, then you can actually be challenging people. talk to other people today. Talk to some of your friends and some of the new faces to find out how have others managed in other situations. What sort of things have they found helpful, and can you actually use them? If you're the person living with thalassemia, then everything should be centred around you. Not in the Little Prince style, being carried on the chair, but actually being directing and going forward with your health, so that you can actually feel that you've got some understanding and some control over it. It does take time, and it can be hard, and it needs trust on both sides, both from you and your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friend, whoever, and the doctors and the nurses and the receptionists and everybody in the centre where you're having your treatment. Ask about what's going on, ask about the new trials, ask about the new studies that help us to get better treatments for you. And challenge us when we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do. If you know what the standards are, then you can say to us, hang on a minute, why have you not done this? My last plea is please, 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 please try to take your meds. It is boring, it is repetitive, I know it's hard, but actually, if you can do it, then I promise you, it makes a difference, okay? If you have a bad day, wake up tomorrow with a new resolve. If you're going to struggle with 1 week, then push that week behind you and move on to the next one. But I guess fundamental to that is sharing the fact that it's not going well, because it's very easy to say to your doctors, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, everything's good. Whereas actually it's much harder to say, oh my goodness, my uni work's getting absolutely unbearable, I've not been able to do anything, I'm not taking my meds. We've heard everything before. We've seen lots of people who've actually struggled, and we sometimes might have a few tricks that you can try, whether it's things like pill boxes or ways of setting alarms. There's lots of different ways of actually doing that. So my last slide, take control, join in. On the right hand side, that's a picture of somewhere called Pancake Rocks. And your health is a bit like a load of pancakes. It's built upon what's underneath. And it takes years and years and years to keep going and keep formulating these things. If you get involved in things like UKTS or some of the international confederation things, if you join in and come and be part of things like peer review, you can come to the different centres and see the different things. And that's a brilliant way of learning. It's a brilliant way of actually influencing the improvements. And the improvements are the ones that we will all benefit from. I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Okay, question time. Seriously? Somebody gotta ask a question, but I'm gonna thank you. Starting with Cedric. I knew you had a question there. I knew it. I can see it on your face. You did have a question.
Could you say what you've done, what you've gained from doing peer review?
Yeah, so on the previous slide, Christine talked about doing peer reviews, and that's basically going around different hospital trusts in the UK, looking at the hematology services, and we look at the sort of pediatric side of things and the adult side of things. So I've done quite a few of these peer reviews with Christine and some of the doctors, and what I've gained is, because where I'm from in Wakefield, I'm the only palpation there, so kind of isolated. It's just looking at how other departments in other trusts treat people with thalassemia, and taking some of those back about to Wakefield and stuff. You know, we've implemented quite a few things. An example of this is So the blood that we have, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the fresher the blood, the better it is for you because the hemoglobin tends to stay higher longer. So we can implement that great field, not just for myself, but people with other forms of anemia as well. That's the UKTS standards.
And then I know you have a few questions there. Do you want to?
Yes, we've got a couple that have just come in on Slido. The first one is, how often should a ferritin blood test be done? New regulations in local hospitals in the Midlands are only allowing 3 monthly tests. Is that too long?
In lots of situations, 3 months is actually okay.
Sorry, Christine, can I stop for a second? Did everybody hear that question, or should we repeat it? Yeah or maybe? Okay, so
Yep.
can you say again?
Of course, yeah, no problems at all. So the question that just came in on Slido was, how often should a ferritin blood test be done? New regulations in local hospitals in the Midlands are only allowing 3 monthly tests. Is that too long?
So the ferritin we use month to month, year to year, to sort of help us see some of the trends in your iron levels. And in some situations, actually 3 months is absolutely fine, because what's more useful is for you to know and us to share together how many days of the week have you managed with your meds? How many days in the month have you missed that middle dose of your deferriprone? How many days has your exchange been left on the shelf? How many days has the Destrol been left in pharmacy? Because if you know those things, then you can then look at the direction of flow of your MRIs, of your ferritins, and actually that can be okay. We can get false information sometimes from our ferritins, either false hope that it's going to be fine, when actually we know inside, oh, I'm not deleting this month, versus false worry when it goes very high, and yet we know that we've been taking the meds.
That's great. I think there's just a general question that can just go out, that the UKTS standards can be made available from the UKTS office. So we do have plenty of those copies available, and I think we possibly have some here today as well. We do. George is kindly demonstrating that we've got a copy of it. Absolutely. So you can get a copy from us, and everyone online, there's a few questions coming online as well. Please do get in touch with the UKTS office, and we can either send it to you or they can get a PDF copy.
Yes?
My name is Pauline, I'm from Bradford, the local councils. It's just really for the region, because we have a hemoglobin network being together, and that's on a quarterly basis. It's taking place in different places, like Sheffield, Bradford, etc. What would be really useful would be to have some patient representative on the as part of the group, because we've got some sickle cell, but not any thalassemia at the moment, and those hazards there, but he's got other commitments. So that would be really useful. And also surveys, prompted, we've got some survey about the service. So we'd really encourage patients, thalassemia patients, or the patients here, that's from the Bradford area, just to be able to treat it, so we can say that what's going well, what can we improve.
Because that's the only, that is a big weapon, because if you imagine, I'm one doctor in an entire trust full of other doctors, we're all pushing their agenda for their patients. But if we can get organised and come together as a whole, with you guys behind us with, what you want from the service. For example, weekend transfusions. We have weekend transfusions at the Whittington, because patients pushed for them and requested them so that they could, go out and do a normal day's work, so it didn't interfere with their working lives, so they didn't have to use their take time off. It's things like that that can really make a difference, and the UKTS is very good at providing that kind of backup. So,
Any more questions? Yes?
Thank you very much both of you in terms of the presentations and the incredible work you've been doing. My question is, from your experience, where do you think things will be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And you could get both from a treatment perspective, also like a clinical answer, and also from a quality of life in terms of
So, from a treatment perspective, I hope that we've gone through at least another round of these novel therapies, so that we know whether the SPAS-sex, etc., that sort of change trying to make the red blood cell production more effective, whether that's actually going to be a viable long-term strategy for people. It would be great if we could get an oral version, of that method. We've come up with a tablet, there are rumours that people are trying to develop a tablet version of the SPAS-sex because no one likes needles. So that would be great if that's come. I'd hope that's a trial at that time. I think that gene therapy will be shown to be effective in a proportion of patients, but I think there's going to be a shift in emphasis onto the other type of gene, changing the gene, the CRISPR treatment, so manipulating, which means you're not putting something in, you're altering people's own gene, which is a bit, it's more hard to do, but carries potentially fewer risks in the long term. But I think what I hope is that people be given options, because that's what I want. I don't want to say to everyone, yes, all patients with thalassemia should have gene therapy or stem cell transplants, because I don't think that's necessary for people. In the UK, in countries where safe blood is not available, then I think yes, actually, transplants should be offered early and upfront. But I think it's giving people options and choice, so that it's not just you've got the choice of platers now, 3, wow, but still better than it was 30, 40 years ago. And it's about having a choice of therapeutic options so that people can, with their vision, think about what's best for them. That's what I want. More choice for you. More choice for you, more choice for me.
And I guess as things get developed, making sure that we're keeping healthy, making sure that you're allowing yourself the control over choice. If people get involved in things like the peer review, then they can actually have far more powerful voices than we can. Because as doctors we can say one thing, but as a patient we say it's heard completely differently. And so please, the more people get involved, whether it's in the regional meetings locally, or whether it's in the national things, then actually that's a really thing to do.
There's actually a good example of this is Anthony Nolan. So second transplants for people with bone marrow cancers. The funding was pulled from them. And Anthony Nolan ran a massive campaign, I don't know if you guys saw it on social media, about campaigning for these patients with relapsed leukemia after the first transplant, having the potential to have a second transplant. And that campaign was successful. So, targeted patient power is a very powerful tool.
Okay, we have time for one more question and then.
Yep, there's one more that's just come in here from Slido, and it says, for patients that suffer from severe breathlessness, with a normal ECG and echo, what's the next step in terms of treatment?
As with all, we want to make sure that they have a full assessment and workup. And the standards have got a lovely chapter in about acute presentations, and we write about things that give the ED doctors or the GPs the facility to ask the focused questions. So, for example, blood clots. There's a great risk of blood clots if you have your spleen taken out, if you've got calcium intermediate, and so blood clots are very common, and they're things that we always get frightened about. Likewise, if you've had your spleen taken out, you may have problems with infections, and so you'll hear us now about, have you had your vaccinations, is your pneumovax up to date, or are you taking your penicillin or your erythromycin, and so making sure that some of these basic things are going on. One of the big things we know is that your lives are not just about thalassemia. You have other stuff to do, and you also have other health stuff to do. And so that's why you've got to consider all of it. But please try to sort of make sure that you don't let everybody just believe it's about thalassemia.
Okay, Riaz first?
Yeah, just this one's
Artificial blood.
Artificial blood. So artificial blood. So when I did my PhD, I worked, which is at King's. We used to do sort of artificial blood. We used to take blood from the hemochromatosis patients that had been resected, and then we try and grow it on in what we call cell culture. And I can tell you, it is one of the hardest things I've ever done, was to try and get sort of a small little petri dish worth of blood so that we could then look at how it was going and do some of the things, look at the, try and look at how we could potentially look at the genes to see how they worked to produce the hemoglobin and how they all interacted. There is, at the launch of the standards, there was that group that spoke about the artificial blood, but it hasn't gone a bit quiet because the amount of, it's so expensive to produce a small volume that until it gets a lot cheaper, it's just not going to be a viable option. However, I think people still are.
The military have done a lot of work on it for to sort of to have supplies of artificial blood. But even with the wealth of the US military, then I'm afraid that they haven't yet succeeded. Yeah. But there will be new things, but it's just not yet.
Yeah.
If you could, yeah, because I think especially for people who have different ethnic groups for the majority of the donor pool. Say like with my sickle patients, they've got, all our red blood cells have got different proteins on the surface. And we try, with all our red cell patients, we try and match them better. Because you guys have your transfusions every 3 weeks. What we don't want is for people to develop antibodies against the red blood cells. Because A, it makes you feel terrible if you get a blood that you've got an antibody against, it can be dangerous. And two, it makes it harder for us to find blood, the life-saving blood that you need when you go. So if I could make like a bald red blood cell without any proteins on it that I could give to anyone in this room, I'd be like, thank you Lord, that would be brilliant. That'd be the best thing ever, because then I wouldn't need to worry about people working on the antibodies to things, because it would be like, my work here is done. My full lifestyle, so we were unemployed, but I'm sure we can find something to do. But absolutely, yeah, I think it'd be good, especially in areas where there's lots of blood-borne viruses, or where screening for blood's not great, or where they just don't have the facilities where you rely on donations from relatives. Can you imagine if you could, and also from a storage point of view, talking about the fresh bloods, bloods less than 14 days old. If we could just do, have blood sort of off the shelf, in a box, not having to do it, even in the freezer, that we didn't have to have time expiry, we didn't have to throw it away, Dr. Roll. That'd be amazing. Yeah. Come on, US military, do something good.
Just one more question, Sajid.
Yeah, this question's on behalf of somebody else, so it might be a bit sketchy, but it's in regards to exchanging the side effects on the kidneys.
Yeah.
And whether they can cause kidneys failure, and what are some of the signs and symptoms, and how to keep that balance in terms of taking the exchange and avoiding the side effects.
So, T-Frasoroxor exchange has been around for a little while now, and in the last year or so, we've now got the film quality one, which is the one we don't have to resolve. Because the film quality ones are easier to take, then Some people who had lots of side effects before with the soluble one were now suddenly taking some bigger doses than before. So what we have seen is that there has been a change in sometimes of how people's kidneys have been affected. That's part of why you having to have all the regular blood tests done. That's part about when you switch to some of the new meds that you have extra checks done. We're not trying to be convenient, we just want to make it safer. And you know, when we ask you to come in and have an early morning urine sample, we're looking for the protein, then we're looking for any of the early signs that the kidneys are starting to be more stressed and more pressured. So I think that all of the collages have got good things and bad things. All of them we use in different ways, but each of them has to have a very good monitoring system in place.
Great. Thank you very much, doctors. A round of applause for doctors. One more presentation before lunch, and this is from a patient, one of my good friends. So Noreen, would you like to come on? I promise that after this, it's written. Yeah, I think you will start with this. Thank you, Mary. So you're late.
Hi everyone, I'm Naomi. I'm from Coventry. I'm a visa senior major patient. And I'm here today to share my journey. I'm here to share my journey with you today. So a little bit about me. As well as being a thalassemia patient, I'm a mother, wife, a university graduate, and a psychologist. So even though I've got thalassemia, it doesn't define who I am or what I can achieve. Things have been a little harder for me to get to, but I got there in the end. My condition doesn't stop me from achieving anything that I want to achieve. So I'm just going to take you through my journey of what I have achieved. And even though I was born with thalassemia, and I had people saying the following things to me. So these are some of the things that people said to me or said at me. So remembering these things, my life started a bit feeling like I wouldn't be able to do anything, I wouldn't be able to achieve anything. So it really knocked my confidence, feeling like when people said to me, oh, she's the ill one, she won't be able to do anything, oh, she won't be able to get married. So even though I didn't actually feel like I wouldn't be able to do anything, but because people were saying all these things to me, that's how I then thought and viewed myself, and it made it really hard for me to manage my condition. And I kind of saw my condition as a barrier starting off. So these are some of my achievements. So, much to the stress of my mom, I left home to go to university and work. I think she could finally breathe when I came back home. So I am very lucky to have an amazing mom who single-handedly looked after myself and also my brother, who's also got thalassemia major. Of course, she was worried when I left home to go to uni, the normal things. And she was scared of the future and what are people going to say. But nevertheless, she stood behind me and supported me with all my hopes and dreams and my ambitions. So, especially in my family, we had it as girls didn't really need to go out and get education, girls didn't really need to go out and expand their horizons. So for my mom, she never really had a quite simple life with me because I was off wanting to get an education, wanting to go on holidays with friends. So she had to kind of put up with all of that with me. So sorry, Mom, for being so rebellious through college and uni. Also, my granddad is another one of my biggest supporters. God bless your soul. He was always by my side because he viewed education really, really highly. So it's like, no, doesn't matter what anyone says. You want to go out there, get a degree, you should do that. So I remember with my graduation ceremonies, he was like my number one supporter. And I remember him telling everyone as well, oh, I want to go to my granddaughter's graduation ceremony. So it's like the first ever graduation ceremony that he went to. So I went off to London to get my first undergraduate degree. I got that, and then I came back from London, did my degree, and we then went to Hajj, and after Hajj, I then went on to do my master's. So I'm going to go on to talk about my education. So even though I was determined and ambitious to have an education, it started off quite difficult because obviously I had people telling me that I wouldn't be able to achieve anything. So in the beginning, with uni, I didn't tell anyone about my illness. I kept it a secret, and because of that, not even my close friends knew. So because of that, I kind of made things a lot harder for myself because it was quite a task hiding things. I'd go off to have my transfusion for a day, disappear, come back, my friends would be like, where did you go? Like, oh no, nowhere. I don't know where, but I'm back now. So then as uni went on and I started becoming more confident in myself, that's when I became a bit more accepting with my condition. Especially meeting Rowana as well, who had her tablets out on the desk, and I'm like, Rowana, what are you doing? You do know that your tablets are there. So as I learned that, as I slowly started telling people about my condition and realised they don't actually look down on me, they don't actually think, think of me differently. So I started kind of accepting my condition more. The more I accepted it, I became more confident with it, and it just made my life so much easier because thalassemia is a part of me, and the more I became comfortable with it, things became easier. So by the time I got to do my master's, I was telling everyone really about my condition. So it started off the same with work as well. I wouldn't really tell people when I started working that I've got this condition. I started working at the age of 15. I think that was mostly because people were like, oh, well, you'll never be able to work. But I wanted to work, I wanted to be independent. So I started working, I wanted to be financially independent. And for a lot of people that told me that I wouldn't become anything, I wouldn't be able to do anything, I think it kind of didn't sit too well with them, seeing me actually go out there and work and actually do things. But it's kind of nice to see that my achievements and my success were kind of making them upset. My most recent, before going off on maternity, I worked as a therapist at Warwick University. So I feel as if, yeah, I've got thalassemia, but it doesn't stop me from having an education or from working. I got married, so I've been married nearly 5 years. In the beginning, around the time of marriage, it was a really difficult time because we had the consensus of, oh, no one's going to marry you, or what's going to happen. So it's quite a difficult time, and obviously because my mum was a single parent, it was quite a worry for her, like, oh, what's going to happen for her. So at that time I was getting people coming for marriage proposals, but for me it wasn't a big issue that I wanted to get married at that time. I still wanted to study, I wanted to do things, I wanted to live my life. So went through a bit of a difficult time, but I stood my ground and, as usual, was quite stubborn and resilient to the people that know me. So, so obviously gave my mum a hard time and made her worried. But obviously that 5 years ago I met my husband, and we just happened to meet. We met through friends, and we met at the time of Ramzan. So I just thought, oh, it was destiny, it was meant to be. So even though I've got thalassemia, it doesn't mean that you can't get married. I just say you can get married, but honestly, just don't do it. So got my little bundle of joy that came out of the most unexpected time. So when I first got married, I was quite keen to start a family, but at that time, the doctors had said that my ferritin was too high. So I had to then work on getting my ferritin really low, well, at a good level. I think it was around 1,000, because it was quite high at that time. So we waited to get it quite low. And then I was referred to the fertility specialist. And then after getting tests done and scans, at that time the fertility doctors had said that I wouldn't need any help because all the tests come back quite positive, which was a really good thing. But for some reason, and after some time, it just wasn't happening. So the doctors were kind of wasn't quite sure why it wasn't happening or what to do. So by the end of my journey with the fertility doctors, they have just said to me, well, yeah, we just think that the best option for you is to look into adoption. And the doctors had actually said, oh, I'll help you write a letter, we'll support you in any way possible. So it was quite a hard time hearing her. So my husband kind of found that really hard to take. But for some reason, for me, I don't know, I didn't feel too affected by it. In my heart, I thought, you know what, if the time's right and when it's meant to be, it will be. And also my mum had instilled in my head that, sorry, what she said, doctors don't always know everything, and all they know is best. So, and ironically, what happened is, the whole time the doctors were telling me that she will never get pregnant, I later find out that I actually was already pregnant at that time. So my little Sarah came along shortly after and brought loads of happiness into her life. So for me, I've been through a long journey, and it's been a roller coaster, kind of coming to terms and coping and managing my thalassemia. But it doesn't define me. It doesn't, just because I've got thalassemia, it doesn't limit me from what I want to do or from what I want to achieve. It's the life experiences that make you grow as a person. And if you don't accept, I just found that if I can't accept my condition myself and who I am, then other people are not going to accept it. So, and then once I did, it was much easier for me to manage my condition and to stay on top of it. So, future is I started my doctorate, which I want to hopefully finish doing. Lots more travelling and hopefully more children. as well. So thank you for listening, and thank you for UKTS for inviting me here and to talk to you all.
I'm the prettiest one here. Yes. Okay. Thank you very, very much. I think it's food time now. I just want to say, hands up to Lorraine's mom. I mean, you are. Thank you guys. So, are we ready for food? I am. So, we have 45 minutes, and everybody got to be back with air, okay? Thank you to everybody.
The other problem was I'm muting these and not mics because obviously you'll hear people talking and stuff, and then I'm not getting any warning as to when they're going to be used. So just all of a sudden I've got to unmute it, and it's kind of I'm just kind of sort of watching, but obviously I'm concentrating on the screen as well. So that's just a lot going on. The cost of like everyone wanted the volume to be pushed as much as possible, and the teaching on the edge of feedback all the time.
Somebody take a picture when the house was full.
Yes, Remain. Oh, kind of love these.
Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2.
Is my phone is charged? That's it. Yeah, it's still okay. Yeah. For the moment. Okay. Thanks so much. See you later.
Nobody's moving. Hello. You're all on your seats. Can you guys come down, please? Okay. Ash. Salma, do you want to come up and sit up here, please? Hello? Okay. you guys enjoy lunch? That's not really loud enough. Did you enjoy lunch? Yes or no? No? Thank you, Ishran. Okay, so we're ready to talk. Before we begin the session, we have a few things we have to show you. The UPTS is now involved with Amazon as well. Does anyone use Amazon? I practically live on Amazon. So there's this thing where you can help the charity by not actually giving a cent, but Amazon gives us. So when you shop, you go onto the website, and then you put UKTS as your charity. So when you buy something, a percentage, I don't know, is it 5 pence or whatever, will come to UKTS. So please check it out. If you have Amazon, help us out. We need it because these events are very, very important. So yeah, next up are these T-shirts. So Ash, who's one of our trustees, he's gonna explain it to you because he has a task.
Yeah. So today we have some T-shirts, as you can see, with the UKTS logo, in different sizes, which we are selling for £20. So if anybody wants one, they can come and have a look and buy as many as they like.
And to support the cause, support the charity.
Yes, so every penny goes back to the charity, goes back to UKTS.
Do more events like this. We also have a marathon coming up, and we have a few marathon runners, so it's to support them. And yeah, and they're really cool. And it's going to, we try to make it sort of young with like hashtags. Jordan and Lee, don't know about hashtags. So yeah, so we have it in like extra small, medium, large.
Yes, so we have, today we have small, medium, and large. Okay, so we have all sizes. So if you turn back, you can see really more. So how it looks.
Okay. Alright, and again, this is all of our social media, and I saw people taking pictures. Okay, we got the people on the top, you guys are making noise, and remember, this is being broadcasted around the world, so when you make noise, they're going to hear all your conversations. So I keep it down. But yeah, the social media, if you took pictures or whatever, please use our hashtag #OnCalConvo so that we can post it and have you involved. We also have a UKTS page on Facebook where we update things regularly. You could also view the presentations that were done today back on it. So yeah, please get involved. And yes, you can still ask questions on the side. The doctors are around. We actually have a doctor clinician from Bradford, Dr. Nandini. She's at the back, and she's like very, very. Do you want to come up and like see you because you're so pretty and like come on, Nandini. She's very, very new to Bradford, but she is a star, and she is so interested in changing patient lives and improving them. I think you're amazing. Do you want to just come and say hello? And I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but you know I do that really well. So yeah, this is Nandini, everybody.
Right, hi, I'm just one of the new pathologists who've started in Bradford for 6 months now, and I'm interested in red cell disorders and treating a lot of thalassemia patients, so I think today's been exceptionally brilliant actually. To learn things from a patient's perspective, knowing what you want, and it's really nice to meet everyone, so well done to UKTS. And I think we need to have more of these sessions. I think trying to engage with the 18 to 26-year-olds, because I've quite a lot in the clinic. Everyone is really young, but really the teenagers who are transitioning. I need, it's trying to engage with them and trying to get tips to help me get through to them, which is what I really need. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nandini. It's really nice to be here. So, how the evening's going to go? London. She treats red cell conditions, and she couldn't be here today, but she's very, very lovely. She made a video. So I'm gonna play this. This is it. Try this, okay? And then we're gonna go on with the I can't hear you. So awful. So yeah, the patients. This is what the patient is getting involved. So after this, mirror, we're up, and then we take it from there, okay? Come on, you guys gotta be like me. All right.
Hi everyone. So Rowan kindly asked me to talk to you all, and my talk is entitled that "It's okay to ask for help." Okay, and so I'm speaking to you following on from the UKTS Family Conference in London on the 10th of March. And so I was one of the few psychology representatives there, so I'm a psychologist. And usually psychologist Helen DeMarco would come along and talk to everybody about psychology and psychological aspects of thalassemia. Helen DeMarco wrote the clinical standards, the 2016 standards for thalassemia care in adults and children. So she was one of the authors, so she's normally able to talk quite colourfully about thalassemia, but she isn't able to be with us today. And I'm also able to be present in Leeds, but I am able to talk to you a bit about psychology. And so my name is Chinny Ezekler, I'm a psychologist. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I've worked in the NHS for 10 years. I joined the Whittington Health in 2016, so 2 years ago now. And I work very closely with Dr. Emma Drasser and also with Helen DeMarco as well. And I am wanting to basically just discuss with you a little bit about some of the reasons why psychology is very important. Thinking about your care and holistic care. And I wanted to just firstly say that the London Family Conference was the first time where I've been to a conference where the atmosphere was so warm and welcoming. And I think that's really important because it shows that the UKTS is a true family fighting to achieve and thrive living with thalassemia. And hearing about the humble beginnings of the UKTS and starting off with just a few patients meeting each other's living rooms and going from that to this large-scale organisation and charity that reaches out to people nationally and internationally. I think that just illustrates that the core principle of the society is about bringing people together and making life better for people with thalassemia and having a network from which to really affect change. And that's a position I'd like to start this talk from today. And from the basis of the fact that all of you with thalassemia who have gone up to Leeds today, all of your family, your relatives, and the people who have gone today, I'm hoping that you've come along to learn, to grow, to connect, and help and support one another. And to do that, but to help each other not just to survive, but to thrive and live with thalassemia and make treatments and interventions even better for the next generation. And I'm keen to be part of that too, and I'm just sorry I can't be with you all today. So I want to just explain what I do and as a psychologist and what that means, because not everyone knows what it means to be a psychologist. And I just want to let you know that it means that I work with the mind, the brain, and the thoughts that go through our minds. The brain is a very complex organ, and the mind is a powerful thing. It can be a thing of beauty that creates. It can create art, music, poetry, great literature. It pushes us to do well, but it can also be really cruel to our minds, actually. It can tell us that we're not good enough or we can't get to where we want to be in life. It can echo the stories you might come across in wider society, even amongst close family or friends or colleagues, when you hear people telling you you can't do something, or why did you marry or have children because you have thalassemia, or you can't do things like other people, you're sick, you're weak, you need to be more careful, you're not capable, you're not like others. Those sorts of thoughts, and actually our minds can really echo the thoughts of echo the messages that you hear from around you sometimes. And I think that some of those messages that I just mentioned now, things that I have come up from the people that I've worked with, or that I've heard people say, and they've experienced having thalassemia. And I think that when the mind turns into our enemy and starts being kind to us, or isn't kind to us in the first place, this can cause all sorts of problems. It can affect our self-esteem, it can affect our confidence, and motivation to try and do certain things, like being around people who don't understand thalassemia or chronic illness, like not working or not studying, or not feeling able to do the things that you used to enjoy. And not being able to manage on a day-to-day basis, because it stops, the mind can stop us from doing things that we know are key to maintaining good health and managing thalassemia sometimes. It might stop us from doing the things that we're supposed to. It could stop us attending appointments. It can really affect our motivation, and when that happens, I think that it can basically just trigger off more problems. And I think that that's really key. I think that sometimes the mind can reduce motivation, but also there are real physical effects of the kind of thinking that I mentioned earlier on, and that people can feel very fatigued, very tired, mentally tired as well as physically tired when these sorts of thoughts are around. And it means that they're not able to do the things that they would usually do, maybe to manage their health and just manage day-to-day life. And the mind can also make us avoid things, or things that we find frightening or scary, like injections or hospitals, or even avoiding people sometimes. It can make us stressed, worried, agitated, angry, sad, all emotions that everybody experiences. These sorts of activities of the mind, we might call them, they're all normal. Normal emotions, common thoughts that can come up. They don't make us crazy, but they can get in the way of our lives, and they can stop us thriving, as I mentioned earlier on, and they can stop us believing in ourselves and our abilities. And that's where psychologists can come in, really. Thalassemia and living with this condition has an impact on thoughts, feelings about ourselves and the self, in terms of identity, and how we've developed and how we see ourselves, and on our self-worth. And it can really expand into different aspects of self-identity. So when I talk about self-identity, I'm talking about, your ability to, the things that you see in yourself, like abilities or skills or experiences, like thinking about your physical strength and abilities that you have, or things that you can't do. Leisure activities, things that you enjoy, that's part of your identity. Your religion is part of your identity. Your relationship status, or the types of relationships you have. The work that you do, if you have a job, your identity can be part of your job. If you don't have a job, that can be an aspect of your identity as well. What you've studied, your culture, your skills and knowledge, things that you've picked up along the way, that's all part of your identity, and so is health. And having the label of thalassemia can be part of your identity. And that can have an impact on how other people might see us, and what we think that others might think of us. Our thoughts about others and about others in the world around us can be really influenced. And I think that, as I mentioned above, when the mind can speak to us in a particular way and isn't kind anymore, it can really influence our behaviours and our health behaviours. And this means having a psychologist or a supportive space to sometimes talk about the things that go on in our minds, and take actions before unkind, critical thoughts, unpleasant, less motivating thoughts hold us back, and really start to define who we are. Because they can stop you in your tracks and keep people feeling very stuck, actually, sometimes these thoughts that we might have. Whether they're anxious thoughts or sad thoughts or angry thoughts. It can really influence our behaviours and our health behaviours. And this means having a psychologist or a supportive space to sometimes talk about the things that go on in our minds, and take actions before unkind, critical thoughts, unpleasant, less motivating thoughts hold us back, and really start to define who we are. Because they can stop you in your tracks and keep people feeling very stuck, actually, sometimes these thoughts that we might have, whether they're anxious thoughts or sad thoughts or angry thoughts. And I think it's at this point that actually it's okay to ask for help, which comes to the title of this talk, that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask your haematology team to meet a psychologist, to join a support network if you have one, or if there's a local thalassemia centre or a local support network that you know about, reaching out to the UKTS, talking to a close or trusted friend or family member. Those are all really important things to be able to do. And I think that talking and sharing and reflecting can help. And it's what I do with people when I work with people in my therapy sessions. I also offer practical strategies to people that I work with for coping with challenging situations. For example, starting school or starting a new job, meeting new people, going away to university, navigating relationships or marriage, thinking about the decision to have children and the challenges that might come with that. Thinking about physical identity and bodily changes, so when people are teenagers and if their bodies aren't developing in the same way as others, it brings up questions in our minds. Transitioning to adult services from paediatric services can be a big point at which issues come up and thoughts come up. And it might not even be negative thoughts, but just different types of thoughts that someone might want to explore or talk about, because otherwise they can become quite, they might become worries rather than just thoughts. And I think sometimes talking about that can help. And sometimes it can be about dealing with worries or exams that I might work with people on, managing high expectations or low expectations from teachers, family, friends, peers, society. It might be around starting a new medication or having to have more frequent blood transfusions. Those can be issues that you might want to talk about with a psychologist, or those might be points at which you might want to think that it might be relevant to bring a psychologist into your care. And a psychologist should really be part of your multidisciplinary team. So alongside your consultants, alongside your specialist nurses, there should be a psychologist in your team. And a psychologist, if you don't have a psychologist in your hospital, there might be other forms of psychosocial support. And that is one of the things that's in the standards for care for adults and children with thalassemia, that there should be psychosocial support, because living with the condition can be very hard, and there can be points at which it's really hard. And so I think that the main thing is that talking and sharing and reflection can help. And it is what I do with people, and it can come from other forms of support. It doesn't have to always be from a psychologist, but that should be something that is a standard part of your care, as well as thinking about medication, your physical health, whether or not you're achieving certain milestones, or trying to help you to start a family. I think that psychology is a big part of things. Your mind is part of your body. And a patient said that once at a conference that I went to that was about physical health. And your mind is part of your body too. And it means that you have to treat your physical health in your thalassemia by also addressing the things that go through your mind. And I hope that if you have any questions about this talk, that it's okay to ask for help. It's important to think about the things that go through your mind at different points in your life with thalassemia, and it's important to ask about psychologists and if you have one in your team. And those are the things that I want you to leave with from this talk. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day at the conference and feel inspired by the speakers and inspired by each other, and keep lifting each other up. And I hope you have a good day.
Okay, so that is all the things we're going to do. Now it's the fun time. So we have two questions here. And then afterwards we go into the debates and then the discussions at the end. Okay, so this is where you all have to get involved. And I told you I will come down there and click on you. Okay, so first up is Manira. Manira is 17 years old. It's her first big presentation, so a huge round of support for her, please. Hi everyone, I'm gonna lift you up. Alright, you're fine. Come stand here. Alright, come on. You got it. I got it. I am Manira Cross. I'm 17 years old. I was diagnosed with thalassemia as a baby for 8 months. My parents got it. Come on. You got it. You got it. Your parents have never heard about thalassemia before, did you? I was very scared too. You got this. Did you know about this before, Mom? There was they didn't know about this at all? You're talking to me now. Forget them. They're not important. I am. You got this. After turning 1, I had a surgery that mixed a cath which helped me with my blood transfusion and iron inflammation medicine. The 15 years before the doctor moved it. I'm gonna stop you. Could you imagine she had a clot guy for 15 years? I couldn't even manage it for 1 year. Do you know how amazing that is? Where was it? Like on your chest? Yeah, I couldn't last 1 year. You did 15, okay? I'm weak. Alright, come on. I faced a lot of issues growing up. I missed a lot of school because of having to attend a hospital appointment to have blood transfusion, bone scan, heart scan, and surgery. It affected my school. The team at hospital tried to help me with this. They called the school to tell them about my thalassemia and made arrangements to help me back to week. So what I have witnessed. Okay, take a breath. Breathe. You're still alive. You're still here. They're all listening. They got you. I began doing school when I could do my transfusion. Same hospital. I also gave talks on what thalassemia is and how it affects me and my principal and teacher in district health. Now I'm in college student challenge as I work with children. I am interested in helping children clear online. I want to help children achieve their dreams in life. I plan to go to university next to become a teacher. I took my life in 2016. One of my dreams came true. I went to different world and I really loved it. Breathe. We're still here. And look at that picture. Do you know I've never been to Disney World? You're better than me. I made lots of good memories that were dealing with my different conditions. The doctors and nurses took me to this trip, and it was a part of a charity. Look how pretty you are. Isn't she pretty? See, look at that. You have like 200 supporters there. They got you. After going on a trip, I want to get involved in fundraising for thalassemia. I started selling bones, cakes, sweets, and candies, drinks, and stickers. One of my teachers ran a marathon for fundraising for thalassemia after meeting. Can you believe that? My teachers didn't never run anything. That's something else like. But you do this work, you do this charity, you work for yourself, right? To raise funds for thalassemia. Could you imagine that? At 17 years old, she does that? What was I doing at 17? Trying to pull my hair. What
Daddy, you want to do it? Just do it. How many times? Seeing a bulldog, stop it. TV on break. The other side, one who tells you to don't skip school. It asks you to TV on break. We ask for then one just keep fighting on. Play PP is good for you.
And most importantly, have a social life. Yeah.
You did it! Everybody!
Great stuff, Madeira. Alright. I know, I'm going to talk to that. You're so good. Seriously. Alright, so this is where the debate starts. And Salma, I made your name up. There's no name tag. This is how I said people wear a name tag. What we're going to do is, Salma, and I don't want to give you her story away, but in one of the debates, she's going to go, I'm going to go for. If that makes sense, you know where it's coming with. So she's going to do a presentation, and then we're going to go straight into the debate. And the first debate that we're doing is the one on if a new and possibly risky treatment offers the chance to be transfusion-free, is it a risk worth taking? So Salma, some of I, some of me, some of me, I don't know. Me, please. Yeah, do you want to come and share your story, and then we crack on with this debate? All right.
Hello everybody, my name is Salma. I'm 36 years old from Birmingham, and I used to have thalassemia major. Okay, when I was 12 years old, I received a blood transfusion that had an extra antibody in it that shouldn't have been there, so what the doctor was talking about earlier. And then as a result of that, I became really, really ill. And every time I received a blood transfusion after the dodgy one, I got really, really ill. So it was just a vicious cycle of constantly getting back into hospital. So the two options available to me were to have my spleen removed or to have a bone marrow transplant. And I chose bone marrow transplant. So that's me in the white on the bed feeling sorry for myself. And that's my little sister who also had thalassemia major. And ironically, we were both in hospital at the same time with infections. So yeah, but the whole family was fast matched for donors, and I actually had two donors. I was quite lucky. My big sister was a match, and my younger brother was a match. But we went with my elder sister because my younger brother looked like he needed it more than me. So this picture was taken literally a few days before the transplant. So I was 13 there. I was healthy, probably about 6.5 stone, chubby, and yeah. With life with thalassemia before the transplant was okay, it was available for transfusions, Destral, and I was doing really well. I didn't have complications, I just took the Destral and had my transfusions, everything was fine. But having the transplant, things went wrong, went badly wrong, and things went wrong that nobody could think of could happen, but they did happen to me. And the next picture I'm going to show you, I don't really want to, but I have to like this, the presentation. It's quite scary, so I do apologise, but this was me before the transplant, and this was me after the transplant. So this was 6 months into the transplant, age 14. So I knew about the hair falling out, I knew about the weight loss and things like that, but I wasn't prepared for what actually happened, which was my body rejected the donor. So any organ can reject a foreign object, a foreign body, and my internal organs didn't reject it. My skin rejected it, and you don't realise your skin is a major organ in your body because you don't remember that in your biology lessons. But yeah, I literally burnt from the inside and out because the body rejected the donor, and there was nothing that could be done to prevent the skin from having this reaction because you can't stop it. So I looked like that for a very long time, and I was really, really unhappy, and loads of dark days. And you've all heard that song by Justin Timberlake, Cry Me a River. Well, I tried oceans and oceans because I just couldn't psychologically accept that. And I was like that for a long time. But anyway, 7 years later, I graduated, I got on to do my degree. The thalassemia and the bone marrow transplant didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. I did go back to my academic year group in year 9, and I went back in a wheelchair because I couldn't walk, but I still managed to do my GCSEs, A-levels, get my degree, and travel the world like Noreen, go on holidays, enjoy myself, have my social life. And I'm 39 years old, no, I'm 36 years old, yeah, I'm getting carried away, 36 years old now. I get told all the time I don't look 36, and I'm like, yes, I know. My big sister, who was my donor, she is my best friend, my partner, everything. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. But the transplant I had good days with it and I had bad days with it. If you asked me, 15 years ago, was it the right choice to make? I would have said no, because I went through so much with it, and so did my family. And you feel guilty for putting them through crap, but you don't know you're going to go through the crap yourself, so you can't protect them and you can't protect yourself. But if you ask me now, was it worth it? I'd definitely say, yeah, it was worth it, because it made me the person I am today. I'm really assertive, I say what I want to say, I do what I want to do in a way my mum and dad's blessing. And there's a few people in the room who knew me before my transplant, and they've seen me through my transplant journey. And they'll agree that it hasn't stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. I still attend events like these because I actually have a younger brother with the same disorder. We're a family of 8, and my younger brother couldn't be here today because he couldn't get time off. But mashallah, he's surviving with the treatment that you guys are on, transfusions, XJ, Desfad, and he's doing really well. The transplant is a good solution. It is a potential cure for the disease. And in 23 years, the transplant has come such a long way. So my experience of it, and possibly what you guys might go through with it, will be different. But in terms of fertility and the liver problems, the skin rejection, those issues are still there. Those haven't changed and they can't be removed. But if you've got all the information and you know what you want, then you can make an informed choice. I think everything that I went through, that even the clinicians didn't know would happen, was unfortunate and just bad business on my part. But now that I've been through it, I can talk about it, and I can say I lived through it. Then I'm more than happy to talk about it and offer my advice to others. But yeah, 23 years later, I'm here. I'm healthy. I can't have children, but I have 3 foster children instead, and I have 6 nieces and nephews. And mashallah, I'm happy with that. That's enough for me, because they are my children in a way. And yeah, I work full time as a foster carer. I have another job as well in fashion, which I absolutely love. And yeah, I'm just living my life as happy as I can. My friends, family, my faith have helped me through this. So I just live by a mantra that I can, I will, and I did. So there you go.
Yeah, toughed up. All right, so you want to come with me? Go back to your mom now? We're good? Great. All right. So thank you very, very much to our speakers. So the next part is the debate. Before we begin, I'm going to introduce you to Anand, who is one of our trustees. He's the secretary of the UKTF. So Anand is going to give you a different perspective on transplantation, and you're going to talk about your experience.
I think Ryan put me a bit on the spot.
Yeah,
She
sorry.
asked me to speak about my transplant this morning, so I thought it was great to talk about it. I was actually transplanted in 1993. I was 9 years old, but unfortunately I actually rejected. So it's great to hear Salma's story, actually being really successful, seeing the other side of the fence, but with myself, it was the other side. So in 1993, I was transplanted under Professor Irene Roberts at Hammersmith Hospital. And it was my sister, younger sister. She was less than 1 year old. And she was actually the recipient of the antibiotics I was receiving the event myself. It was tough, I've got to admit. It was a very, very tough time. What I can remember from being that young, especially going through chemo, going through the whole issue that you had behind it, going through the opportunities. And there was, I remember that period of time at the Hampstead, there was a couple of patients there that you also had cancer recognition as well with the PhD. That's what I never actually had that myself. But, you know, going through the transplant, going through that journey, going through chemo, losing your hair, getting off the food, the mouth ulcers were really bad. That was the most terrible thing I can remember.
Sorry, my voice is still good. But actually, go on here. Do you guys want to run, please? Do the best? Yeah. I'm sorry. So everybody. I think you're just saying that right now. Sorry. Come on, everybody. We're fun. You know, I made that I look my hair and all, right? Come on, like, it's alright.
Okay, so sorry for the guys at the front, but for the back, I'll rewind back to you. So I was actually transplanted in 1993 under Professor Ira Roberts over at Hampstead Hospital. And my sister was the person that actually donated her bone marrow, which was like less than 1 year old. And it was really interesting hearing obviously some of the story because clearly the positive and the flip side of it. But obviously my journey was slightly different because I rejected and went back to type. It was an incredibly tough journey, especially going through chemo, going through having all the drugs at that time, seeing people that had GVHD, obviously skin issues because there was patients that were retransplanted next to me that were going through that. Having sore mouths, the mouth ulcers were on the hardest thing, being the mouth care, and then obviously being isolated. You know, you're in isolation for a hell of a long time. And just seeing, you know, obviously you're 9 years old and just seeing your friends and family through double doors it's tough. So psychologically, it was a really, really tough journey. I would have loved it to work out. I don't regret anything my parents did at that time because obviously it was their decision for me to get under, for that journey of bone marrow transplant. It was 1993. We only had one collator out there. It was Desperell. I wasn't great at collating. In fact, I wasn't great at collating up until probably about 2 years ago. I'm sure Emma Dresser will tell you all my collating like that. But for them, it was really a choice of, you know, can we help our son to survive, really? And, you know, there's an option out there to try and cure him. And at that time, they decided to take him. I don't blame them for what they did. Absolutely not. And I don't blame them for actually going through that journey and actually having to go through it because they obviously were going to see their son. And the psychological and emotional journey of that. But it is tough. It is very, very tough to go through transplantation. Then you've got to take your anti-rejection drugs afterwards as well. And 7 years and cyclosporine, etc. There's endless counts of that. I still remember GCSF as well. I don't know if you oh, okay. So there's also things that, because obviously you've got the immunity, that you can have injections on top of that to increase the immunity in the neutrals and the white cells. But if you were to ask me a question today, when I actually had a transplant in 2018, my response would be completely different. It'd be no, I wouldn't have a transplant now. And that's my personal view. And my personal view is that we've got 3 collators out there. We've got Desperell, trying to trust it, we've got Ferriprox, and we've got X-ray. There's 3 collators, there's 2 that are oral. We've heard about this Plasticep this morning and the trials that are going on, and hopefully that's positive. And we've got other things that are happening under the surface. The ability to have obviously safe blood here in the UK and the ability to actually be transfused, for me that's enough to give me a good quality of life. I'm now touch wood, I'm collating quite well on my collator. I could go to hospital without any issues and have my blood transfusions. I can go to work. I'm very lucky that the company that I work for, I told them that right at the beginning, and they completely supported me. I've got a family support network around me. So when I go through that journey, what I did back in 1993 now, knowing that I've got all those very sections of the collators and blood transfusions and having a unit like Winston actually looking after me, no, I wouldn't. I think certainly for me, it's a completely different scenario picture to the one that was back in 1993. But you know, at that time, I think it was the right decision to make. So hopefully that's giving you the flip side of the coin. I don't know if you wanted me to bring anything else into that.
Okay, no, so now, and I am going to come back in the middle. Now it's when people tell us what they think. It's a debate, it's a fight, it's arguing with me now, because I was making a very exciting joke today. So yeah, I'm going to come and pick people because you guys are too quiet. So, yay! Alright, so I'm going to talk to you. I don't know who you are. Yeah, you! Yeah, you! Hello, how are you? What do you think about this? I told you, don't get involved, I'm going to pick you. That's good. That's what you get. What do you think? What do you think about all the new therapies? Would you do it? Would you try to do it?
I've never had it all myself, but I've always been created from starting from desk row. I'm now an X-ray. At the time when it was for me to have one my own, because I find a match for myself. So I didn't go through that. But thinking about it now, if this new thing came along and it has positive sides to it, I think I would think about it, just going for the future and what I could put out and come out of it.
Make your job, come on. Make my job easier. Make your job easier. Alright, who's next? Who's next? I'm gonna do it. I saw that you look like raise your hand, maybe too small. Alright. You are next to me. What do you think? Censor it. Censor what you're thinking right now.
I'm going to go for it.
You're going to go for Trump.
No, I'm living happily, getting contributions, doing what that's going on, that's wrong. I'm doing exchange. If it was on the exchange, I would have thought exchange is perfect.
And what about things like luspatercept, like what Emma spoke about this morning, luspatercept, gene therapy?
Gene therapy, on something. If there are a few more successful cases, I might just go for it. Yeah. Like, 5 years. Basically, really fun.
How old are you now?
21.
And in university?
Yeah.
You're happy?
Yeah.
Mainly, you're happy?
Yeah, I'm pretty much working with the top time. Last 2 weeks in university, I'm like, free. I've managed that much, I'm doing as well. With power, it's fine.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Alright, who's next? Like seriously.
Joanna. Hello? Hello? Joanna? Joanna? I've got a parent's perspective here. Is that alright?
Do you mind waiting? Yeah, okay, we have that. I'm a little bit deaf, but okay.
Testing.
It's working. Can everybody hear him?
I hope so. Good afternoon, everybody.
Do you want to stand up?
No.
Yes. Come on.
Deciding of talking, it's forced me to do it. Firstly, thank you very much for all the discussions this morning, and it's enlightened me on quite a few different things. But I have 3 children with thalassemia major, and my youngest is in Leeds down at the moment, having just had his bone marrow transplant. So I've come away from the hospital to come to this because we just had an uncle, Liz. And some of the inspiring stories of the patients, you know, give me a lot of hope. I have two daughters upstairs playing. They're not ready to listen to all this just yet, but we have the same feeling of the future and what will happen and what won't happen. Your debate on whether or not to go through a bone marrow transplant, when we just did it with our son, he's only 19 months. You know, the doctors gave us the option. We didn't have a match. I had a letter a year ago telling me that nobody was a match for him. And then suddenly, you know, I was really, we got a call telling us that my wife was a match, 100% match. You know, at the moment he's spiking temperatures, he's gone through all the chemo, you know, he hates it in hospital. He just, you know, you were 9, couldn't see the family, he's a baby, he's saying, why can't, you know, only mother can stay with him at the moment, only one person can stay with him at the moment.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, because you are, you know, obviously younger than I was, because you're spiking very horrible temperatures, and you actually just on your own, and you're in a group probably about just as much as this, cubicle area, that's very small.
We're fortunate, to be honest with you, some of the facilities now are obviously a lot better than yours and things, but you know, it's heartbreaking seeing someone go through all of this. You know, my daughter came in, I hope she's not listening, but she came in the other day and she said, Dad, is this what I'll go through when I get my bone marrow transplant? And I was like, you know what can you say to her? So I said, you know, it shall not happen. But then the gene therapy conversations that we've had have obviously been really inspiring, because there's something there and there's a goal to it. Now, you know, people can cope with it and people will tolerate and live life with it. You know, my daughter's had 2 ports. You know, she goes, when can I get this port out? When can I do these things? They see other children, and especially in this current era of, you know, peer pressure and everything else, they want to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to be going, you know, to events and things like a port and be told they can't bounce across the walls and do all these things. So, you know, if you ask the kids, they want a transplant because they want to be, you know, they see it as being normal. You know, if they don't get it, they'll cope. They're very brave and resilient, but they want the transplant because they want the chance to be like everybody else. You know.
Absolutely. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with like 2 points there. One is hope and obviously being inspired and knowing that there's something on the horizon that could potentially cure you, and even not just with the transplantation, but with gene therapy, with Cetaphil and all the other drugs out there. That hope and inspiration is really important. And you're right, as a child, you just want to be taught that's normal. Interesting, if you ask me the question now, when I get transplanted now, as I am, I would actually rather have my health, because my health made me who I am. And I think I had this debate or speaking to someone in the unit, and I'd say I wouldn't actually give up my health for anything now, because it's defined me, how I am, it's driven me to who I am. It's allowed me to be right here, right now, speaking to everyone, but also to help the other people and trying just to share and to be together and to give hope and inspiration. It's actually made me see the world in a completely different light.
No.
And for me, it's kind of something special. Not many people across the world get that. In the UK, how many thousand acres we've got? Probably over 1,000, 1,500, something around. I don't know the actual numbers, but there's not many. We're a special group. And that's made us special. We're here today. Yeah, we're all from different backgrounds, we're from different religions, we're from different countries, but one thing we've all got in common is that strand of thalassemia that runs through every single person here today. And that strand that runs through us all is unique, and it's only few people that have that.
So I'm just going to add into that, because I didn't come to many of these conferences previously. It's only in the last couple of years that I've had the opportunity to come. But to hear and meet people, to share that somebody's got married, somebody's had children, somebody's been able to do things. I mean, you know, I heard an orange story about, you know, telling them that, you know, she won't be able to get married. You know, we worried about that with our daughters. We're like, I've got 2 daughters. You know, this is going to be a problem. Fertility is an issue, all these things. But to hear this and to share this, it's fine. But I just think in this modern era now, the technology and treatment, work, fantastic work that the doctors are doing is giving us something that, will give us the opportunity to hopefully do it. And, your time was different. I think this time it was a lot harder. I mean, I couldn't ever imagine going through all that. But
George, we need you on the head table now, please. George, I'm sure you know your name. Head table, please.
George is next to me, so I'll drag him up. Thank you for listening.
Just 2 points, as always, I'm devil's advocate. I think it's very, very important that all new technologies and all new treatments we support to develop. And I believe that with gene therapy, if it can actually work, and we know it's going to work, for me, it's going to be another option for the countries to take. And I think it should be available. Then people can decide, just like they decide which clinics to take, with the help of the clinicians, they will decide whether to go for bone transplant or not. The other point that I want to make is that a decision to go without, please don't misunderstand me, I'm just being devil's advocate as always. One of the decisions that people make in order to go for bone marrow transplant or for prevention, in other words, not going through with the pregnancy of a affected fetus. Basically, the fundamentals are: is the family capable of handling what's coming? And I do not have any scruples against a parent and a mother and a father to turn around to themselves and say, look, we will not be able to cope with a thalassemia patient, with what they have to go through in life. We will not be, or we will be able to cope because we are capable and we are willing to fight. It needs a fight. And if you're able to do the fight, then you can decide this way. But if you're not able to do the fight, then you can decide this way. It doesn't mean that it's a weakness, it doesn't mean anything. It is, I mean, I've seen, unfortunately, in my lifetime, too many families split because they could not actually cope with any form of sickness in the family. And that's something that we all need to keep in mind when we're making decisions and when we are seeing new treatments coming along.
I think you're spot on with that, actually, George, because I was lucky I had a wife support, not just my mom and dad, but my grandma was still around then, and my aunties and uncles. We, as a family, been very open about my family. I've never hidden it. I've always told people in the community, and I told my friends and the boys, etc. So we've been very open. So we've been lucky enough to have a very tight-knit support network, because you kind of need that when you go through with the transplant because of the rigors of it. But again, even with talking about doctors, it was great to have a consultant that was not just telling you the good points and the advantages, but actually telling you the other sides and the trials and tribulations that you'll be going through and the potential issues that you may have with transplants, not just at that moment, but in later life as well. And it's important to know that you're still going to clinics thereafter. So actually to have a really good consultant that's looking after you, that's giving you a balanced account, that we're very open and honest, not just giving you the gloss of this is potentially going to save your life, it's going to kill you, but actually showing you the other side and being very responsible. I think it's really important. And touch wood, lucky enough, I had that, and I hope other people similar types of consultants undertake those transplants.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think if my family and I had known that for 7 years, I would still be going to hospital with chest infections, skin problem. The diabetes kicked in as well as soon as I had my transplant, so that was unexpected. But yeah, had I known that for 7 years I'd be constantly going in and out of hospitals, seeing different doctors, more professionals that I didn't see before, then yeah, I'm sure I would have had a different approach and view to having a bone marrow transplant. I probably would have said no back then. Fast forward 23 years, technology has changed, treatments have changed. And yeah, I think I'm a bit on the fence. I might say yeah, I might say no, purely because I know how badly things can go wrong when they do go wrong from my own personal experience. I did actually meet a person who had a transplant, a bone marrow transplant, before I actually had mine, and she had it for different reasons. She didn't have it for thalassemia, and I think it was a double-sided coin because, mashallah, she her transplant went seamlessly, swimmingly. She had no issues. The bone marrow got accepted straight away, and she wasn't even in isolation for long. She was in isolation for 4 weeks. I was 5 months because I couldn't get out. And some of the things that you don't think about, basically you get put on a clean diet, so you can't eat fresh food. Everything has, well, you can, but everything has to come out of a tin basically. So for 7 years, I never ate curry. I never had chapati. I lived on Weetabix for breakfast, 60 tablets, soup for lunch, and fries for dinner. That was my diet for 7 years because I couldn't eat Asian food. And if you think about it, it's like we never had much spice in our lunch today. We were all complaining. So I never ate it for 7 years, and I'm still there, alhamdulillah. So there's a lot to think about. There's little things that you don't think about and that just don't come to your mind until you're actually living in it, and then you're like, okay, I've got to deal with this now. So yeah, you just deal with it. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to stop you guys here. Thank you so much. We have another debate coming up now. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just say, you did a fantastic presentation.
So this part is the second debate, which is life with thalassemia today easier than it was yesterday? And before we go on, George has we're going to show you a little history of population. It's sort of like an evolution of time. You're going to see things that you've never seen. I feel like he's like some kind of guy. So yeah, George's going to take us through it because he was there and he's creative. Alright, so take it.
Hi everybody, can you hear me? Okay, but before I start, let's have a little show of hands. Who's on Just Desperate here? Just Desperate. Who's on Ferrotrox? And who's on XJ? Okay, so it's about...
And who's not taking their drug?
I'll be up to that in a minute. Okay, my name is George. I'm about 60 odd years old. So unfortunately, I've seen it all. I don't know how much more I'm going to see. I'm just saying what? What? Anything else? Okay. You can see how technologically incapable I am. Okay, so this is Desperol. I don't know if you remember it. This is actually the big bottle, 2 grams. And of course, nobody will remember that because they're all too young to remember it. This was the gun that we were given to use before the butterflies and before anything else. We used to actually dilute the Desperol, put it in that syringe, hold it into your ear, and shoot yourselves. And I mean literally shoot yourselves, because the needle will go straight in. And you can imagine I was about maybe 10 or 11 years old when I was given this and was told to do that once a day. You can imagine how many times I missed. Then the decision was to do infusion pumps. And they came up with this fantastic contraption that obviously was, I couldn't carry that weighed more than I did.
It really is very heavy. I took that picture and it was hot.
And what used to happen was, again, to dissolve the Desperol in a 20 ml syringe and stick it on that machine, and then the needle will be sort of attached to that and onto my belly. And of course, I had to stay in bed, or I couldn't really do much about it. So you can imagine having that for 12 hours. And then, thank God, the development by the UKTS paid lots of money to develop the portable pump, as it's called. And now, thank God, everybody who is on Desperol has one of these things.
And George, can I stop you for a second? When he says he's being really modest in what he's saying, the UKTS, the founding members and their parents actually remortgaged their houses to raise money in order to get a scientific.
Yeah, the doctor that developed them then went to a company called High Dynamics, who wanted us to give them £5,000 in order to create 5 prototypes so we can test them. So the committee people there, we all went and got a loan, whether it's with a mortgage or finance or whatever, so we could get the £5,000 and put them towards the prototypes. And unfortunately, we were stupid enough not to make a contract with Biodynamics that if it worked, then we would be able to get some money back. Now they're selling millions of them, and they're very, very expensive. But anyway, there you go. So the next thing that came along was this wonderful Baxter pump that is now, it comes delivered at home, and I'm sure that some of you, I'm sure most of you would have seen that. Then wonderful, God saved us by creating the first oral chelator, Ferriprox. This was again the UKTS funding in the research. That actually to be developed cost £1 million in the 80s for the Thalassemia Society. So that was, again, we were fundraising left, right and centre to raise that 1 million over a few years in order for that to come alive. And then of course now, most of you are on this X-Jade, and of course we know that the new formulation of X-Jade is now available for everybody. So that was just a little history for you guys that possibly haven't seen any of those contraptions I showed you, or some of them anyway.
Have you seen that gun thing though, like from the 1800s, it seems like? Have you seen that before? Could you imagine getting that stuff here?
I still go it, yes.
In George's museum.
I look at it and whenever I feel low, I look at it and then I think, no, I am very happy and a very happy man to be here today. Okay, so this was just for you guys who all of a sudden have tablets and wonderful methodology to do your treatment, and really, I don't know what it's called, annoying, pissed off, or whatever you want to call it, when I hear.
Do you see why we need to argue against this?
You don't want to, we don't chelate. I mean, I hear it from the doctors who say, George, we've got a chelation problem. People do not chelate. And I really want to have a shot there and go and have a visit. So, can somebody tell me why?
Alright, so I'm gonna, if you guys don't answer, you know what's gonna happen, right? At least see if you from here now. What do you all think? Okay, I'm coming down. Like, what do you think about the whole thing? Do you think that having easier things and they get happier times?
I think it's a lot easier now with the new collations that are out on the market, but I think there's still inconvenience with side effects related issues. But I do think we have it better now than we did.
So what is the issue?
Sometimes you get side effects from the iron collator that you're taking. No, you get acute kidney injury, for example, after X-Jade, which I've had, and I've had to stop it. So you try. I mean, I went on X-Jade for a short term and it was brilliant. It significantly improved my quality of life. But then I had to stop taking it because of the acute kidney injury that I developed.
Have you tried all the therapies?
I'm actually on deferral, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that I take that religiously, no side effects, but that's not enough.
No, but the good thing is that's why there's 3.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You have no excuse not to, because if one doesn't work, you've got 2 more. But why? Like in terms of, I don't know, X-ray, so somebody who didn't have side effects. Why? Why?
For the time when I started in X-ray, I think it was more like not emotional, like the psychological aspect of it. So I think when I was a teenager at the time, when I struggled with it, and it was accepting the whole thalassemia and everything else that comes with it. So it wasn't solely just, I was doing this, it was the fact that why am I having to do this, having everything behind it to go in it. I didn't have the motivation and like, I don't know, the psychological thing behind it.
Okay, so I was really bad, and I don't know, a lot of people would hear the stories that I did when I used to break the needle. I'm not even in the game years, by the way. I'm saying it as a disclaimer. I used to break the needles off the thalassemia and the butterflies and just stick the plastic. And my teddy bears and the mattress got that stuff. But I mean, we all go through that rebellious phase. How would you change it now for the youngsters? How can we get them to actually realize that? I think if I had been told when I was younger that my skin would have been 3 to 4 times darker and you get like spots and all these things, I didn't know iron could cause those things.
Yeah.
But I don't know, how do we change? How do we change our attitude? Because we have all these things available to us, but we
I think at that age is why you have that lack of knowledge, like what you're doing and the impact it's then going to have in later in life. So, you know, when you're at that age, you don't think further down the line, well, this is what's going to impact. So I think knowledge and probably more like kind of support or understanding of what a person's feeling and going through in order to overcome that barrier, get on top of it. That makes sense.
I don't think you hit the nail on the head. I think it is easy in some sense of actually having 3 collated done it, but there's all the social aspects that you have now as well. You know, there's the whole, you know, trying to get into a career, back into life, back into kids, and, you know, trying to take tablets. I wasn't very good at that. I couldn't get by with it for God knows how many years. And unfortunately, with the ferropods, I had the severe neutrinos, so that counted that out. But with the exchange of the previous dispersible version, I wasn't doing that either because I'd rush out to work and grab my train and work in London, and then I wasn't taking that. I was missing that consistently. And as we know with exchange, you've got to take it to make a difference. And it's only now that I've actually managed to break that cycle with the new film coated version that you'll significantly see a dip now. But it was really hard for me. There's a social aspect. So it's not the fact that it's hard in terms of what we've got, the tools that we've got make it so much easier. Trying to fit it
I didn't want to go down that avenue, but I think it's important that we all, for a second, sit down and think, well, if we were in India or in Pakistan or in Afghanistan or in those countries where they would not necessarily, and 95% of the people that have thalassemia do not have any of these things that we have. Maybe some of them do because but it's costing them a fortune. But it's important for people to realize that, I mean, I met a person in India who worked in order to make $10 in order to go and buy a box of Theraclox in order to be able to survive. And unfortunately, he would need to work a whole month in order to make that money, in order to have another month of work, in order to have another bottle of Theraclox. So I think that it's important at some stage through the day, we realize and we appreciate that, thank God, the NHS is here. Otherwise, can you imagine what would have been happening?
If I could say, as a parent,
if we can give children the responsibility from a young age to manage their own medication and manage themselves, is important. Today, if we use today as an example, we've had this conference, we have children, they are 15-year-olds sitting in the corner there. They're patients, parents are no longer even here. They've not stopped talking. They haven't listened to anything we had to say today. They didn't understand, this is for them, this is for everyone here. But children understand it from a young age. Listen, this affects me. If I want to look like an adult, I need to make sure I please. If I want to be somebody and I want to have children, I want to have a normal life, I have to take care of me. If we get that into our children's minds as quickly as we can, it will help. Right? Because I've tried all day to control the noise up there with them, and they just refuse to listen. And this is for them. They need to understand that this makes a difference. This is the whole purpose of it. Right? If we don't, when they look different, when they look younger, and they don't, people treat them as if they're ill. This is why. If they're responsible for themselves, we wouldn't have that. Right? So parents, I am a parent as well, and I will tell you, you need, as young as your child is, you need to get them involved in their own care. You need them to understand why everything is important. It's hard for us to understand, because we have to deal with it every day. But they need to understand, because they need to take responsibility.
I was just gonna say, when I was just at the age of 16, I used to religiously take my medication because my parents were sort of motivating me and everything. After 16, a couple of years, I was off the rock because I was taken over it. But what made me actually, I mean, now we've got it easy because we've got the exchange, which is easy to take. I went to a Leeds Conference with UKTS, and I seen a lot of patients there from Bulgaria and all over the country, that they never got the sort of right medication and the transfusions what they needed. So when I came back to the UK, it sort of motivated me to sort of pull myself together and start taking my medication. I mean, I was taking Despro, which I tried my best. But because it was legal, I wasn't taking it. I think the only thing with Despro is because we don't sort of have symptoms straight away, we don't know what is actually affecting us inside. Like when we have a headache, we know if we take paracetamol, we're going to get better straight away. Whereas with the iron overload, we don't know until like later on, like 6 months down the line or a year down the line. Whereas I went to London to see a Dr. Shaw, and she says to me straight away, she goes, "Your colour looks great." I thought, okay. And then she's like, "You've got too much iron overload." And I says, "Well, how do you know that?" She's like, "I can see by your colour." And then from speaking to her, from a bit of motivation from her and everything, I took it on board, and now I sort of feel a lot better myself, because before I used to feel tired and never wanted to do anything, so I wasn't taking my Despros or XJ or anything. But now, because I'm on top of everything, so I feel a lot better in myself as well. So I'm just saying about the only thing why a lot of people don't take it is because we don't sort of get symptoms straight away. If we sort of got some sort of symptoms, we were religiously taking them, thinking, yeah, the only way the pain's going to go away is by taking them. But because we don't have the symptoms, that's the reason why a lot of us, we just think, oh, we'll take it tomorrow, and it just carries on and time just goes on. And before you know it, 6 months later, down the line just goes quick. So that's my experience of not being taken the Despro and the exchange.
If you have that, we feel kind of invincible, like nothing can affect us. Like, I get blood, so I'm Superman. But yeah, I get that, and I think I felt like that too. But what can we do? The only people that are hurting really is ourselves.
It is the silent killer. It's basically the silent killer that's doing the damage without us actually knowing what it's doing to us. And then there comes a time when it does just dawn upon you that actually I'm really going to get my act together and do something about it. And it's just like that moment where you wake up to reality and find that actually, if I keep going down this journey, I'm going to end up in the box, or I'm not going to be around it, or to see my future and everything. But you're right, it's like a silent killer. And my friends was about 7 or 8 times consistent for a long, long time, and denying it to myself that I was taking it and not taking it. And then it just dawned upon me that actually you need to get your act together and do it. And it's no, you can't lie to the doctors, they can see it in black and white right in front of them. They can see it yourself, they can see it, they can't. It's just us that kind of not hitting that reality. It really is, it's that silent killer.
You know, my mother told me when I was growing up, she was like, you know, I may have given you thalassemia, but anything you get after this is your fault. You get diabetes, get whatever, because you caused that yourself, and she was absolutely right.
I really struggle to understand.
I tell you a little story of what we used to do. We used to actually have these old desperate parties. We used to get together, because basically what we had to do was to actually take the bottles back empty every month so that they could give us a new ones. And of course, how do you fool the doctor? We used to have parties where we would sit down and have our vodkas and whatever else, and we would draw Desperol bottles and then flush it down the toilet. But we used to have empty bottles to take back to the doctor to say, look, we've done our flushes. You know, so we've been there, we've done it all, but at the end of the day, what were you left with? A body full of iron that will give you additional problems. And thank you very much, I've got diabetes from it, and I've got all sorts of other interesting stuff. And I thought I was fooling everybody. Well, the only person that I was fooling was me.
And I think that we give, I don't know if any of the doctors are in here still or they're outside, but I think we give them a really hard time too, because they're looking at us knowing that we're like a ticking time bomb. And they're looking at us, we refuse to take our medication. And I've seen doctors, even with myself, break down and cry. Because it's like, what do you expect them to do? And they're looking at you trying to kill yourself in that way. I mean, we give them, I think, we harder than the stick, because we think they don't understand, but they understand much more than we actually think.
They either sit down and cry, or they throw you out of the clinic and say, if you want to die, go away.
Oh, Dr. Monkey, I don't know if anybody heard Dr. Monkey. Dr. Monkey, she actually told me, she's like, you want to die? Go die. Get out of my office, go die. On your own terms. That's what she said. And she was right. But could you imagine that emotional burden for doctors and like looking at your young patients and knowing that they're just killing themselves because they refuse to take their medication? Like Noreen said earlier, we were in university together, and I did not make any. I didn't make any excuses for not taking my medication. I had my Desperol pump at the back of my jeans. Do you remember that? And I'd walk all over the university with it because I needed to have it. I came from a country where blood and all this is not available. I don't know if you can tell, my accent is really messed up, but I came from the Caribbean. And in Trinidad, blood, so if you had, I know a family with 2 kids, and the blood bank gave them 1 unit of blood and told them to decide between the 2 children who should get that. That's what happens. And you have patients who come to us and they beg us and they cry. When we go to meetings, they come to us and they cry. And can you give us some of your medication? Because they don't have anything. And they just want that chance to live. And we're here in a first world country with like champagne problems literally, and we're refusing to do it. And these people, like I cry every single time they cry because they come up to me and they literally cry with them.
I mean, you're spot on there. We recently did a personal trip to India, and a lot of us have connections here to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and different countries. But we went to a clinic in Punjab, and there was 100-odd patients there. And they were travelling from all over Punjab just to come to this one clinic. For us here in the UK, very, very basic, but it was giving them free collated. And the challenges they faced, it's very interesting. Some were so grateful just to get that small dose. They were looking at 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, just to get that one little bit. They look like the savings were actually going there distributing that. But The other challenge is, it's interesting speaking to the guys that are actually doing this, delivering the free drugs, the other challenges they're facing is actually, once they give it to them, it's actually trying to get them to take it as well. So they're kind of facing those issues as well. They're trying to challenge that. So there's one side, you've got these guys that are so grateful, and the other side, you're saying to them, here's your drugs, you've got to take it, and it's trying to get them to take it as well. But when you really see it for yourself in a developing country, it breaks your heart. It really breaks, because you're here, but you're hoping inspiration. You're hopefully that hope of inspiration for them.
Yeah, and to think my biggest problem with it was like, what pajama to wear today?
Yeah.
Considering like what they go through. Yeah, you guys are fun.
Can you hear me? I just want to say that I was actually quite good. I was very committed to my treatment. I think I was very fortunate. I took my treatment when I needed to, and I think that was thanks to my parents, because they made sure that I was chelating every single night without fail. And it wasn't up until even through university, I said to myself, if I want to live out and live the university life, I need to make sure I chelate, and that was my bargaining with myself. But it was only until I started work when chelation became difficult. Just the convenience of it, working long hours, having to chelate overnight, staying out late. But back on track now. But I think for families with young patients, adult patients, they need to make sure that they are collating. That's the biggest advice that a patient can give to a patient.
X-Treat now and X-Treat now with the new formulation, you don't need to do all that preparation. So therefore, there is no issues. Ferriprox, you don't need anything. Okay, you've got a little bottle in your pocket, and you carry your 3 that you have to take at lunchtime, and that's it. The rest of them is before you go out and before you go to bed. So I don't understand, and maybe it's because I've never actually experienced the capability of saying, oh, I don't want to take pills. Well, don't take paracetamol then when you've got a headache. Do you take paracetamol when you've got a headache? Do you take other tablets when you need to, for example, you had a heavy night of drinking? You take a lot of water and lots of paracetamol or Nurofen or whatever.
Obviously, we didn't know that.
What?
Obviously, we didn't know that.
No, of course you wouldn't.
I think there's a flip side to that. I think it's one's discipline. You obviously very, very disciplined. I think at university I was completely opposite. I should have had to university. I should have done it. We did get to the same university, I didn't realise that it was there. But it is actually having the discipline that is there. And the other thing is, perhaps we don't appreciate what you guys have to go through at that period of time. And obviously you've seen a lot more than myself or anybody else. And so my generation and younger, we don't probably appreciate how sometimes it's easy to take the tools that we've got in front of us. But then also think that there is all that social aspect that we're kind of battling through as well. And the times of change that we've had, the actual change in the period.
Can I stop you for a second? So I'm told that parents didn't take their kids back to the creche and they're running outside. And I don't know what's happening outside. Do you guys know about this? Anybody got children who's outside? No, they're not closing the creche, but I think the kids, they're worried about their safety, like on the stairs and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Does anybody know? So I think we should take a break.
Okay.
We need some caffeine. Sorry. She's been waiting a long time. Can we just check on that?
Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma. I'm a medical biochemist and a medical writer, and I've written about patient voices and needs for 20 odd years, almost every disease and therapy area, etc. overwhelmingly, what we're talking about here is human behaviour. Because as privileged as we are to have oral medications rather than intramuscular injections, what we have is this thing called human nature. I have a daughter who has growth hormone deficiency and she has to have an injection every day. She would love to not have an injection every day and to take a tablet. It's very much that privileged position of somebody who has a plane is admired by somebody who has a car, is admired by somebody who has a bike, is admired by somebody who has to walk. So what we've got here is simple human behaviours, and I can absolutely reassure you that across every therapy area there is always a problem with compliance and adherence to treatment. And medics, so I'm a medical biochemist, right? My daughter has an injection every day, and you know what? We forget to do it, or we don't want to do it, or there's an active rebellion, according to whatever's going on in her life or my life. Because this is the reality of living with a long-term condition, whatever that condition is. Every single day in this country, somebody with diabetes has their foot amputated. If you sat somebody who has got their glycemia under control next to someone who's just about to have their foot amputated and said to them, if you don't get your glycemia under control, this is what you risk, we think that would work, but it actually wouldn't. Similarly, if we put things on the front of cigarette packets, horrendous stats and pictures of people with lung disease and cancer, we think that would work, but doesn't. So what we have to do is look at the realities of living with a long-term condition. And something that you said, George, was we miss out that human aspect of any condition, and that it's really bloody boring. We want to be entertained, we want respite from it. So Hippocrates said we should ask, what kind of person has this disease? Not what sort of disease does this person have? And we need to find individual motivating factors and fully accept, and our medics do accept, they might cry or send us out the room, but we all have to really think about the fact that we will fail to adhere. That is human nature. So one of the things I communicate about is patient principles, whatever your therapy area, and I use the acronym of BREATHE. B stands for we need to be doing things that boost our lives, to live, rather than boast about a treatment or a condition. We need to be, R is to be real and realistic. We will fail, we will get bored, we will we'll have some objections to taking on treatment. E is we need to entertain ourselves. And by that I mean, it does suck to have the kind of shit that people have to go through. So we support ourselves by being entertaining too, and talking about the real things that happen to us. So don't underestimate the value of being entertaining, humorous about stuff that happens. A is things that allow people to take action. So I should go to the gym 3 times a week. I don't. I have to do things that make me go to the gym. That includes taking the action of putting my gym kit in my car the night before I go to work. T is just being able to trust each other. So that trust transaction between you and your doctor. Yes, you need to go in and say, I'm just not taking my meds. I'm being shit. Can we look at why I'm not? H is helping and not being afraid to say, I'm not doing it or I am doing it. And the last bit, the E, is we've earned the right to be honest and talk about the difficulties of living with a long-term condition. So actually, it doesn't matter what the therapy area is. We are humans, we will fail, whether we have privilege or not. So if we think about how we provide short-term incentives, accepting we will fail along the way, that is the only true answer to helping people to take their meds.
Add to what you just said. For me, what I've always been trying to advocate is if there is no reason, you will not do your treatment. So you need to create reasons for your life, like education, going to school, going to uni,
Family.
getting a job, getting a family, having children. That is what the best motivator. My problem is that thalassemia did not exist. No treatment existed. And I am one of the very, very few lucky ones for some reason that I am still here, whereas 95% of my friends and my peers are not here. And I know why they're not here. And what I'm trying to convey is that you will not be here unless you actually wake up to reality, which is a lot easier than what was before. And that's the end of the story, really. You know, we're trying to make them understand that at the end of the day, you will die if you don't do your treatment. There is no doubt. Unfortunately, it's depressing, but unfortunately, it's reality.
And you know what? I think we, as everybody's been saying, we're a family. We are a family. And if you know that somebody, one of your friends, they're not taking their meds, push them. Try to get them to do it. Encourage them. Because we do it to each other. When one of us isn't doing well, I mean, I tell George off, he tells me off. That's how we live.
But can I just say that was the whole point of today's conference, the conference in London. It was about listen, learn, talk, and inspire. It was about helping each other. We're all come together as one family.
We shouldn't be distant. We should be together. We should be fighting this as a team.
I want to see tons more people like the young lady here that got education, degree, the master's, she's done it, and she wants to go to a PhD, and with a baby. That's the idea. You know, when we're going to say we can live a normal life, but here's an example. And why?
I'm a woman, can I just say? She's a woman. She's good in that.
Okay, yeah, well, there you go.
That's even more.
Okay. And a woman.
Thank you. So anyway,
Can I just say, just kind of add on, that in our commentary, there's a few of us, and I think the support that we have like a Saturday group, and a few of us, and I think that we come together as a family, we do things together with their transfusions together, and I think that's made it a lot easier to comply with medication, not to feel isolated, and we have each other to rely on. And I think all of us are actually doing really well with our medication, our treatment, our therapy. So I just wanted to say, commentary, I hope that Robin, you're doing well.
About how can we campaign to get a better unit or a weekend unit? And I know the story of you guys, that you guys got together and we had a very supportive consultant in Dr. Nick Jackson, who pushed you, pushed the hospital, pushed the executive to actually try and get a weekend service. And you guys do that once a month and you do it collectively all together. And that's fantastic. You're there and supporting each other. And that question came out from the audience, or it's actually earlier on today, but that's just a great example of how you guys campaign to actually do a better service for thalassemia yourselves and the community. And it's great that you had such a forward-thinking consultant to do that. So again, for that question that was out there, that's a great example of what commentary process is.
That's how the UKTS started.
all right, so coffee time, cafe time, some kind of time. Thank you very much. So yeah, we have about 20 minutes. And then everybody back in here. Okay?